Game begin.
I had to renounce my Filipino citizenship when I became a naturalized American citizen. It's like a thing that you have to do, and then like my mom was just like, "Hey, do you want to be a dual citizen?" She's like, "You just got to go to like the Filipino embassy," and then and then I'm like, "What? I renounced my Filipino citizenship." Yeah, this doesn't mean that they like accept that you renounced it. You just say words or whatever,
and then you go say some more words and you get it back.
I don't know, man. I didn't do it yet.
You didn't even do it? Oh my God.
Now is as good of a time as ever.
Right. You might want to do that in the next month.
You might have no citizenship. You might actually just be...
Yeah.
I have the Marcos family and the Dutertes in the Philippines. Trump is a freaking picnic of democracy. You have no idea.
All right. So the first question for...
He's not shooting people in the street yet.
Wait, are we actually recording?
First question for my two guests is, it seems that the lessons learned over the last few weeks is that we should not be trying to steer the Spike Colony podcast towards swing listeners and instead cater to the views of our most extreme fan base. Agree or disagree?
What is the last few weeks?
Yeah, what did
we
I miss?
haven't had an episode in I don't know how long.
It just seems like the best electoral strategy for our podcast is to no longer contain all of the basis instincts of the co-hosts.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm the same all the time.
Yeah.
Lan once was on our podcast and then had a heart attack and then went on Mano's podcast to talk about it.
And talked about that. Right.
That was like literally the process. Our podcast, heart attack. Mano's podcast, heartbroken.
That sounds right. You guys cause heart attacks and I talk people through them.
Yeah, and you help them recover.
Look,
yeah.
I don't know much, but I know that the Spike Colony formula is essentially failed, whereas the All Things Considered formula is essentially successly.
How do you define failure and success?
I don't know. Some dude who follows Lanny on the internet said that, and so I just assume that I don't even know his name. I just assume it's true.
Great stuff. Anyways, welcome to season something of the Spike Colony podcast, the number one analogy podcast on the internet.
We're a very pro analogy.
Even if the hosts don't pick up on the analogies.
We're here with special guest, a man who analogized nostalgia as being probably stronger than heroin, Brian Manolakis.
It depends on the quality of the heroin.
I can't say I've never tried it. I will at some points, near my deathbed. I plan on trying some heroin. But in the meantime, the closest I can get to it is a strong whiff of nostalgia or so.
Now, why would you try heroin? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you've tried cocaine.
I haven't tried much. I'm a drug noob.
Cocaine is dopamine. Heroin is like heroin's on the list of things you shouldn't try.
Why? Look at people when they're on heroin. They look so happy. They look like they're in heaven.
No, they're sad. I know people who are like, even in full recovery, like recovered heroin addicts, whatever. And like the thing about heroin is it's just like it's a relief from symptoms, and the symptoms come on from not having heroin, right? So like you have all these horrible withdrawal symptoms, which are just a result of not having heroin.
So why would you do it the first time though?
Yeah. So the heroin is just a cessation of the withdrawal symptoms. That is a terrible sales pitch. Versus cocaine is just like dopamine.
Yeah, obviously that's true. So this kind of reminds me of cigarettes, right? Like cigarettes feel like a poor man's version of heroin. Every cigarette you get gives you that fix. But the difference is, I presume, like there's no real high for cigarettes.
Oh no, have you never smoked a cigarette?
Yeah, like when I was hammered and when I was 20, I would like socially smoke a couple.
Oh man, cigarettes make you feel good.
Do they?
Yeah. Good. Like, if once you're addicted to cigarettes, you no longer get the good feeling anymore. But like, you get a buzz off of cigarettes.
Wait,
if you're not like
what's the cigarette like happiness curve? Your first few cigarettes are fucking terrible. You're hacking up a lung. They taste gross.
You get over.
What cigarette is good? Your eighth one, your 25th cigarette.
So you have to be like at least a casual enough smoker that like you don't just have the horrible cigarettes, like hawking up your lung or whatever. Like when you're smoking cigarettes in high school. younger, I don't know if we even have younger listeners, Lanny, but like younger listeners won't understand this because like my kids would be like, who smokes cigarettes? That's so stupid, right?
Exactly.
You know,
but that's still my
No. I mean, they do the same stuff. Like, Mano, you're a high school
when I was
teacher,
in high
right?
school,
Isn't
every hot girl smoked cigarettes?
Isn't everybody just vaping in the bathroom at your school, Mano?
Not that much. It's like it's not really a stereotypical American high school. There is a very, very large South Asian population to the tune of my kids are often literally the
Just
only
bullied.
kids.
Just bullied for being white.
They are. Finally, I get it. As a straight white male living in West Windsor, New Jersey,
It's like they just show up to class.
I understand
A bunch of Indians and Indonesians are just like, man, Alakis. What kind of last name is that? Just get over here about these
my
feta.
sister was on David
feta
Letterman.
eating.
Was she on David Letterman? Which one was she on?
No, she was nothing that big time. It's funny though. One of these South Asians is I'm not even going to say. Obviously, I'm not going to name names, but she came up to me and she told me, she goes, "Your daughter's Jenna, right? Jenna goes to school in the school that I teach in." And I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "She's so nice. Like she's one of the few white people in our school that like actually talk to and seem like they give half a shit about Indian people." And I'm just like, A, that's a nice compliment.
Yeah,
but
you're
B,
raising
like,
good kids.
But like B, if you don't do that, like you have like
affairs.
10 possible friends, you know, like you're really limiting your
Your daughter is one of the exemplary whites amongst our. I just wanted to let you know.
This entire episode is just a trigger warning.
It sounds like she can get down with the spicy food, unlike her father. We we had a great time talking about that in the booth at LobsterCon, in which we made plans to have this podcast. Man, you just told me you can't listen to Spike Colony podcast anymore. What gives?
If I'm being honest, it's Mike. I just for the first little bit, I enjoyed his tangents and rabbit holes and whatever, and I know him personally, obviously, and we go way back. But there's only so many hours of tangents and rabbit holes that he goes down that one can take. And since I've been hearing these for 30 years, right? The average Spike columnist has only been listening to these for like, I don't know, a year and 2 months or whatever. So I have 30 years of this, and I'm at my limit. So
that is a fair criticism.
This goes right back to what I said at the beginning of the podcast, right? Because there's like two strategies in front of us. Take our wild and bombastic and exciting, though sometimes off-putting to some co-host, and either sanitize him for a swing listener audience, defang him, or just lean farther into it. Because fundamentally,
that's how you get to be the 45th and 47th president.
Yeah, fundamentally, like, you miss 46. You just talk about the product that we're offering people, and it is hard to be a non-mic enjoyer.
Is it possible?
And listen.
Why would you listen to this podcast?
Well, there's good if you care about spiky pre-modern content. In between all the shenanigans, there's a few little nuggets of wisdom.
We've actually unveiled.
It is wrapped in a.
We got to this way too quickly.
A bacon layer.
It took us 8 minutes to just solve this problem because fundamentally there is a lot of hanging out, and then there's like a lot of information. And if you're an information enjoyer, you have to deal with so much hanging out.
Yeah.
But like Rich Shea was just like, that's the Spike Colony brand. It's just like some guys at a coffee shop.
Well, I was talking to Sam, and I was just like, you don't listen to the podcast on 2x speed? They're like 3 hours long. And he's just like, I don't listen for the information.
When I used to, we were early, when BDM and I had our podcast were for like 20 years ago, right? We were like 2006, I think Top 8 Magic started. Everyone would just say the same thing. They're like, it's just, I guess this is a thing that you talked about later, Lanny, like when other podcasts emerge, right, in various industries, just like hanging out in a room with your friends. And the thing that was really, really interesting was people wouldn't come up to me, but they would come up to Brian and like significant others, wives, and mothers all listen to Top 8 Magic. They're like, oh yeah, I love to listen to this Magic podcast. I don't understand anything about the Magic.
Wait, they like to listen to it, or they've heard a lot of it because their husband listens to it?
Oh, God forbid.
They would, whether they, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other one. They like.
I don't know. I actually don't know if it's 6 or a half dozen. That's a big difference to me. People tell me all the random.
We would shout out listeners' moms. That was the thing we did, so we knew their mom was listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
But I've heard that too. Like people, random moms, or maybe not moms, but wives that I've met over the last few years say that they know my voice, and it's like weird to hear me talk in real life, and it's because their husband has their shit on in the background, but they feel like they know me a little bit. I joke. My usual comeback is that you put it on when you guys are fucking, and they. Do you want to listen to my dulcet tones as you guys are getting dirty? Sometimes I get some yeses, so I could see there's some women out there that are into it. So maybe it's the same for you.
Well,
my wife hates podcasts. Like it's like a battle for whose Bluetooth. I mean, it's like roulette, right? So once we get in the car, start the engine, we don't know whose phone is going to get hooked up to the Bluetooth, and then if it's mine, it's ATC, and then if it's hers, it's like actual music. It's music.
Really?
She turns it off immediately.
Are the odds even?
The car seems to favor whomever was last connected. However, that is not always the case.
Okay.
And then one time,
strange world having a car.
Yeah, one time, she was like driving off like from our driveway. Like I'm on the second story. She's driving off, and Mike calls me, and then the call gets routed into the car. And I'm just like, what the hell? Like, my phone is like in the house, and the car is like driving away, and like the mic call gets hooked up to the car. But
she didn't pick up. I don't remember having a conversation about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just ended the call, waited a second, and then redialed. But I think it's like an interesting thing. I mean, I think that Mano is is a number one hanger outer too. But it's just a different format because it's an interview show. It's more Terry Gross than there's been commentary.
It is a successful format versus a failed format. I mean,
complete failure. Should we compare numbers?
Can you draw that?
Should we talk about the numbers?
I don't know. I honestly don't delve into this at all. I think on average over the years, I get something on the order of like 1,000-ish downloads and listens via, I don't really know how it does, but when I look at the back end of what host podcast? What word am I looking for?
I mean, you probably started yours a bit back, right? So we used Anchor. Anchor got bought by Spotify.
I used Libsyn. But like, what's the word for those things where podcasts are stored? There's a word.
Hosting service.
Yeah, it'd be
maybe just host. It'd be a host.
Yeah,
is Libsyn, and the numbers that they give me, which I don't think are perfect, but on average, it's the total of everything. Not in the first few days, but overall, is around 1,000.
Okay,
like.
So it's just the same people. The people who claim to choose one or the other are actually just listening to all.
Yeah, where are? Because I was actually going to ask you, do you mind if you send me a copy of this at the end, and I'll just release it on all things?
Oh yeah, sure.
That would be so great. That's like how they have it on Instagram.
Yeah, you just do it at the same time, and then people will just be like, "Wait a second, I already listened to this."
Yeah.
And it's the worst episode of either podcast.
Right.
They don't even talk about magic.
But there's no reason to do it if the circles of the Venn diagram is one circle. There's no reason to do it. Yeah.
There's like a population. No, listen, the people who don't like Spy Colony, they hate listening to it anyways because there's just not enough out there, right? But there's a growing podcast scene. Shout out to Dress Crew Hardcast. Shout out to Two Cabal Therapists. If you are not a fan of Mike Flores, God forbid, if you're not a fan of me, I know it's impossible not to be a fan of Mano. You've got plenty of places to go.
Wait, what is Two Cabal Therapists? I haven't heard of this.
It is. I know it's one of them is Philip Altman, and I forgot the name of the second one, but they just started the podcast. They recorded shortly before Euros, and then Philip Altman got top 8 at Euros with Ill-Gotten Gains combo. And that's one of my favorite episodes. They just talk about Ill-Gotten Gains combo. And yeah, he just kind of took everyone's breath away by going off on like turn 2 on coverage in the top 8.
That's the GD hustle, right? Like you top 8.
Top 8.
I'm going to release a podcast now.
What's the noise to wisdom ratio on their pod? Like how much?
Mostly wisdom. They're both German, so they're very efficient at
they
delivering
hate fun.
information.
They hate fun. Then I get it.
No, they're notable fun lovers, right? Storm Combo, the other person plays Enchantress. They get down to business though.
How are their accents? Are they thick?
No, they're excellent. How much German do you speak?
The podcast is in German.
0, but I'm just curious.
You wouldn't even know.
Yeah. No. It's. I listen to it on 2x speed, and
you really listen to pods on 2x?
Yeah, I
can't do 2x. Maybe 1.5.
I listen to audiobooks on 1.25.
I have a heart. Like, it's really weird to hear your voice at regular speed, Mano. Because like the majority of the time I hear it, you're talking like twice.
But 2x is nuts. I'd be really surprised if you weren't in the 99th percentile of podcast listening speed.
I'm blown away that anybody can handle, like, once I found out about 2x. Oh yeah, so when I first started listening to ATC was after LobsterCon 22. And I listened to those on regular speed because I just didn't know that you could speed up a podcast. And then it turns out
sounds miserable.
Well, it was actually a great time. It's so weird. One of the weirdest things is that just like I have like a block on my walk home from the train to my house where every single time I just pass by this intersection, I just remember Rich Shea, All Things Considered. Like, it's just like the voice comes, like, just whispers into my head, and it's just like a uncontrolled, like, sense memory thing.
The Parfait one?
Yeah, the Parfait one.
This is the best episode of any Magic the Gathering.
It's just burrowed into my brain.
So good.
Yeah, it's burrowed into my brain.
If you ever wanted to compare a successful podcast versus a failed podcast, let's listen to like that Rich Shea episode, and then listen to our Rich Shea episode where he says that this is just some guys hanging out at a coffee shop.
But he loves it.
That episode drives me crazy too. I wrote about it. I wrote about it. Mano was just so tilted by the Singleton duress in the sideboard. He's like, you can't even Cutting Wish for it.
Yeah. I was. I mean, it's. I mean, in retrospect, obviously he broke it, but like at the time, like.
Well, no, he didn't. He didn't. Right. Fundamentally, one, he only got second place. Come on, Rich. What's going on?
We're all mathematicians.
No, but he. There's so. I mean, I've talked about this.
His win rates the last 5 months in monthlies.
I talk about this all the time.
Second place is a horrible underachievement for him.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little slightly below expectation. It's wild to me though. Just like that list is just crazy. Triskelion Nishoba was like the package. It had Cutting Wish. It's just like a bunch of like it's probably 15 cards different from what came to be the deck that got the cadre of decks that got land tax banned. But it's like that's I try to. It's impossible to ask this question to somebody, right? But like, I just wonder. I'm just like, do you think that you can just lay? If you're superb at Magic, can you just like lay a bunch of points on your deck building decisions because it just doesn't matter? Like Reed Duke just plays 45% decks, but he's got a super solid.
That's not really true. Like as a person who spent a lot of time crafting the narratives for the mothership, we mostly made shit up so that people would think that there was diversity in the meta.
But it's plausible, right? It's at least because Rich can't he can't keep getting away with it.
So like if you compare like Reed's deck choice decisions in like a Star City Open where he clearly just by top 8 fine, but who cares, versus Reed's deck decisions for a Pro Tour that he's going to win. The deck that he won the Pro Tour with did not resemble a Reed Duke deck. It was a 2-card combo kill deck. Right? But
the
deck he just played at Worlds
that proves my point. That reinforces my point that you just lay a bunch of points because you
care about tournaments. Right, like, but if he's trying to win the world championships, he was playing. He was on the Kai Bude train, right? He was the same deck that Kai played.
Yeah, right? Well, so Shea, I mean, the Rich case is difficult because I don't think he knows how good he is. Like, I just don't. Like he has these conversations, like, and actually it's part of what makes him such a great guy, right? Because he's just like very involved with talking through decision making and community choices and whatever. But
he's the Chinese guy in the Prestige who walks around crippled all the time so that you don't know that he's got like the giant bowl underneath his skirt, right? Because he's just living the bit so that he can do the magic trick, right? Like
I actually don't think he's capable of that, but it would
he's
be
so
incredible.
good at the bit. He's got you convinced. I'm just a befuddled guy. Deck decisions.
He does. He also keeps it up in all of his Facebook posts too. He has this. Do you guys ever watch Meet Joe Pera? This random.
I know of it because I know of Joe.
He has such a Joe Pera vibe on Facebook. It's like so cute. Is like the only word I can think of for it. He like will literally post like, got a new haircut on Facebook,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, you know, no one would do that except for Rich, and like you can't even make fun of him because it's just the things that he. You know, like it fits his vibe and the way that he does all of this stuff and all the things you're talking about manifest it.
The guy's got a giant fishbowl underneath his skirt, and y'all are fooled.
Right. So, but I don't want to leave this topic though. So, you mentioned Sam, and you mentioned just giving up Edge because you're a fucking master.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just posted in the chat this deck that Sam played at the old school event.
Oh yeah, but this is land tax control.
Yeah, but like look at this deck. All right, he has 1, 2, 3, 4 planes, a City of Brass, and a Pearl. Okay, to cast his land taxes. Right, he has 6 actual sources plus I guess some Telwars.
Lotus.
Yeah,
4 ivory towers.
Lotus counts.
I mean, I guess Lotus fine. 7, but like 7 sources to cast. Like, what are we doing?
Telwar Stone sometimes gets there.
It's like the least likely thing to get. I feel like, or second least likely. You know.
That is an excellent question, but I feel like if anybody can
total mana producing lands in the deck, and the deck is predicated on searching for basic lands.
Right, it's 9. Well, there's strips. 13 total mana producing lands in full power.
Mano, what's more powerful in old school? Turn 1 Savannah Lions or turn 1 land tax?
In actual old school, turn 1 Savannah Lions.
Yeah. So we've talked about. You just had Dave Williams talk about his Savannah Lions mana base.
Yeah, but he still had like 10 sources.
Yeah, that's
right.
Well, you said it's more important to have Savannah Lions turn 1 than it is land tax, right?
I guess
you just have to trigger it eventually.
Wait,
I see what you did.
I'm trying to look at this. So Sam's just trying to like land tax Ivory Tower because then Dave can't damage him with his first turn Savannah Lions.
I mean, he's
just like nice Savannah Lions, bro. Gain 3.
He's just right. That's basically it. Tax Tower Sylvan. And do broken things. He doesn't seem to have any. So Randy Bueller, 6-ish years ago, we started playing old school around the same time. He's basically disappeared from the scene, but he obviously gravitated towards the deck. He loves the deck and activated James Day Home, fine. But he got bored of that, as people do. And so he built a land tax deck in this space that had a lot of similar things, but he also had some like bangers to reset the game. You know, he had some Armageddons and some Blood Moons, and his win con was a Miser's Land's Edge, right? So it's a similar deck to that.
I mean, the win con here is flipping Chaos Orbs.
Right. I'm trying to figure like, oh, he has a Library of Lang, so he can't deck himself. Like that's basically it. I mean, I guess he could theoretically win with a Triskelion after a Mind Twist, but like maybe that's really his plan.
Yeah, no, I mean he's talked about it. His plan is Twister Regrowth, and then flip Chaos Orbs. Flip for it. Let's go.
Is he a good? He's not a good Chaos Orb flipper though.
No, he's solid. He's not like God tier, but he's solid. He doesn't miss.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never seen him flip. I just assumed.
There's a video.
And
of
how
him.
do you know that he's not good?
There's a video of him on. So basically, we talked about it. So I don't know too much about Chaos Orb flips. I've seen some of the videos. I've seen some people's technique. Sam has a very clinical technique, right? So he just holds the Chaos Orb out a foot. He puts his fingernail underneath the edge of the card, and then he lets go, right? So it's just clinical, but it's very, very solid. Mm-hmm. And I guess there's a class of Chaos Orb flippers who just like can just toss the card onto the table and always miss. So he's not at that tier, but he'll go 10 in a row.
There's some arguments too by Chaos Orb purists that don't like the dropping onto your finger play because like you're kind of touching the card twice, so it's a little bit of a gray area in the rules. It's still accepted.
But what if the release is you're holding it one? Sorry to the listeners, I'm going to pantomime this, but if you're guys, there's not a Magic card on my desk. How is this even possible?
It's so weird.
Just like I have to go
I have
grab a Magic.
literally thousands in front of me.
What is the first one you picked up? Mine is Brain Freeze.
What do you
Mine
think
is
mine is?
Korean Tithe.
Spike
The
Colony.
next one I picked up is I think this looks like an Italian Nevinrall's disc.
The second one is also a Spike Colony. I have a stack of Spike Colonies.
That's all you have? My second one is just an original Legends Aiden Oakenshield, as one usually has lying around.
This podcast is doing great for the auditory medium.
Yeah.
And
So
I had,
you do this and you let
Ew,
go.
Mike. Ew.
and I had these like nonsense
Well, that's just to
Colin
troll
Earth
Chris
and-
Picula. Those are
Metal
proxies as far as
No.
I'm concerned.
Foil. Yeah.
Well, no, because so I have nice versions of all these cards, right? But then I wanted to build more decks, and I was just like, do I have to buy like the nicest version of like for every deck? I can just like I can swap in the things that I need for the deck pick.
Yeah,
but,
you're,
like,
you're just using
to
it.
own
You're
a bunch
using it
of
as
decks,
proxies.
I don't need to have the best version of each card because it's like it becomes annoyingly cost prohibitive if you do that, right?
Dude, Meddling Mage is $3. All right.
No, I have it. I have a set of meddling mages.
No,
I've
just
got
buy
two sets.
20 though. Like,
Yeah.
what's the difference? What's $60 amongst friends?
Well,
Right? Like,
he just doesn't. He doesn't have it.
all right. So let's get. So here's what I'm going to do. Normally, what happens here is Lanny's on some topic, and Mike goes down some rabbit hole, and it kind of all dissipates, and we forget what we were talking about originally. I'm going to circle back to Lanny. You know, again, you guys, listeners can't see this, of course, but he's trying to flip an orb and show me this like weird double technique. So what are we doing here? Is it actually touching?
So
Okay.
So I can't replicate Sam's technique because it's just dropping straight down.
Yeah,
So-
I see what you're doing though.
So I can't. Oh man, it's like flipping. So I can't replicate.
Now you're upside down. I'm
Yeah.
very disoriented.
I can't
Yeah.
replicate Sam's technique, so I actually need to practice this. I haven't practiced this at all because I don't play any old school. And if I did play old school, I'd put Lightning Bolt in my deck and not worry about whatever this is. But
Yeah,
anyways, he doesn't like drop it onto his finger like that. He has his finger start the rotation, so there's only one
That's
touch.
my colony in a sleeve.
Well, I had to put it in a sleeve to try to replicate because without the sleeve, it was affecting the flip. I can't do this. Why is this so hard?
If that's the case, he's not even on any kind of gray area. It's perfectly legal
legal
to
flip.
hold it with two hands and drop at the same time.
Yeah.
So
I mean, one hand is the anchor, and the other one is essentially like letting it go. But the hand is starting the rotation. I just can't quite figure
Japanese
out what
pop.
is.
yeah, I just assumed, I guess, because he's not like an OG. I don't think he played
Listen, he's not
in like
an
94.
No, he did.
93.
He did.
He did?
Yeah, he started.
I'm sure I asked him this when I talked to him,
Yeah,
but now
yeah.
I forgot.
He
I thought he was a little bit younger.
It might have been. I mean, his first set might have been like. That's a good question. Was his first set in the Ice Age era?
But even so, if it was 95, people who
He
played
was
in
playing
95
Type 1.
often flipped
But
Chaos Orbs.
He was playing Type 1. He like I'm pretty sure he's nearly as early as you can get because we had a chat, so I was talking to him about pre-modern unbanned list. And I was just like, oh, if you can unban one card in pre-modern and you want to like win this tournament, what card would you be? And he's like, I didn't read the whole list, but I read the first card, which is Balance, and you should play Balance.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, oh, that's interesting. Like, why is Balance so good? and he was just like, yeah, Balance is like really, really good. And I was like, I guess I've never played a format where you can play 4 Balance. And he was like, I have. So that's how long he's been playing Magic.
Right. So then, yeah. So he has been around. So I just misremembered how new he was. He is basically an OG. And if he played Magic back in the day, then I'm sure he's a pretty solid flipper.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Silent Generation type stuff. And I think this is actually, I mean, this is a Sam Black podcast now, but I really do like it about him that I think one of the most interesting things is that because of his success on the tour and because of his like persona, in the competitive sphere, like people simply just don't know that he just likes playing Magic and he's been doing it his entire life. And he has structured his life such that he can maximize playing Magic. And it's not important if it's the Pro Tour or old school or competitive EDH or Cube. Like, obviously he likes them different amounts, but like the bottom line is just like, the guy is just here for the Magic. So,
And the best part too is that he like literally wants to sit across the table and battle paper Magic with another wizard on the plains of Dominia. Yeah. He does not want to play Moto or do any of that stuff. He literally wants to play Magic as we did in 1994, 1993.
Yeah.
It's insane.
100%. I mean, and the only difficult thing about this is that the kind of Magic he's playing is so unimportant, it makes it a substantial threshold for him to travel to play Magic, which is one of the unfortunate side effects of splitting up LobsterCon. I don't want to unpack that too much. I think you did a great job with DFB and all the considerations are there. But I guess it is, shout out to all the people who attended, were able, really like getting in the pre-modern and old school championships in on the same weekend. We're deeply sorry for your loss, but that one's tough for Sam because he's just like, well, now it's twice as many plane flights for half as many tournaments. So
but it's the same amount of Magic, the same amount of main events. Yeah, but there's plenty of other good side events.
Yeah, of course.
So it might still be worth it. And he told me he got like a $85 plane ticket to LobsterCon or whatever this year. So if he can find something like that on Spirit, it still could be a double.
Yeah, I mean, also apparently you can just be like, some lamer who wins like the side event, and that's a thing. I speak specifically of David Tao, who is, as we speak, in the top 8 of the Vintage World Championships.
Is he really?
Yep.
He is.
David Tao and David Kaplan, the double Daves from New York City, are 2 of 8.
Just Tao House meetup.
25% of
Holy shit.
the Vintage Championships.
Does he even? I know Kaplan is a vintage ringer. I didn't know that Tao played a lot of Type 1.
Yeah, Tao's.
He owns multiple Black Lotus. I've seen him buy one.
Yeah. It was actually, he wanted to get me into Vintage, and he was just like, well, most of the time, he was just like, you can borrow my Bazaars, or you can borrow my Lotus, and that's the hardest one to find. You can probably get somebody to get the other 8 or 7 for you. And then I was just like, actually, the hardest card to find is Nethergoyf, or Pyrogoyf, or Atraxas. It's just like, I probably have like...
What words are you saying?
I probably have like 4 people that I can like be like, hey, if you're coming to Eternal Weekend, like, can I borrow some power? And they just be like, yeah, I got power. I'm like, also, I need Broadside Bombardier. And they're like, yeah, I don't have that.
I don't know what any of these words are.
Are those cards expensive?
No.
Okay.
Are these real Magic cards? Did you just make this up?
I think nearly every single one I named are from a Commander product, but
but that'll do it.
There's like some new Goyf that like literally costs 1 and has like flashback or something.
There's 3 new Goyfs, and they're all playable. They're all They're all bangers. So like a Flame Tongue Kavu Goyf is like literally the one of the strongest creatures in Vintage right now.
How much does it cost?
4.
It literally costs 4?
Yeah.
Doesn't that white initiative guy, what does he cost? 3, 4?
3. Yeah. He also rules.
Vintage is all about literal gray ogres and like fucking whatever, Ironroot Tree Folk.
Yes.
Like I don't
1,000%. Well, actually, right now it doesn't seem to be, because I think Psychic Frog is like the thing, and all the decks that top 8'd are blue, so none of the red or mono white decks made it in. Okay. So it's still
the initiative deck is mono white 3-drops is your deck in Vintage.
Yes.
Yes. Come on.
Chromox, Ancient Tomb.
Does it play full Moxes at least to power this out?
Yeah. Right? It plays every piece of fast mana. It plays Ancient Tomb, Chromox, all the Moxes, all the Lotus.
Pedal, everything.
Probably. I don't. Pedal might be too weak.
It's a mechanic that was never developed.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But that's Vintage.
They're currently battling that out. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
2 Daves and David Williams, previously mentioned on this pod, also is at Eternal Weekend, and not with having the same level of success, but having a blast playing Magic. Another OG who just loves to play Magic the Gathering, as evidenced by his happiness level at LobsterCon.
Yeah, and also Roland Chang fighting the good fight, trying to get David Williams into foils. He wasn't a foil guy.
When you say fighting the good fight, I mean, Dave is a whale. Right, so he told me he quit playing Marvel Snap because he was spending $200 a week on cosmetics.
Wait, is he?
Yeah, and I was just like, wait, what? He's just like, all my cards had to be be
That's amazing.
I'm like, how? Right?
He's just like, paying for Ben Brode's salary.
You can do it, right? So, when I told the guys at at Second Dinner about this. They were like, that's crazy. It's the first time I've heard of someone quitting the game because they loved it too much. Right? Because he's just saying, I can't not have all beautiful cards. He's like, I never was like this in any other game, right? So he just on cosmetics, right? Like so he's like, I had to quit. And I'm like, you could just play and not buy all the cosmetics.
No,
Yeah,
they keep on
we're-
releasing. They keep on releasing more.
He's not.
No,
that way.
the cards are beautiful.
This is funny. I got to see his entire
big.
journey because he picked up Marvel Snap at Andy Longo's, our mutual friend, Mike, his wedding in Vegas like a year and a half ago. Longo, as we all know, is just addicted to playing games on his phone. And he was just snapping all weekend long. And we all kind of picked up Snap then. And David and Williams did as well. And so I got to see this progression. He was addicted. They built a Discord. They chat about it all the time or whatever. And I can see 18 months later him quitting because of the amount of money that he's flushing down the drain to get shiny fake cards on his phone. That I will never understand. Shiny real cards, sure.
I mean, I really like
pixels,
to make
man.
my snap decks beautiful, but like I do it by, earning the cards, right? Dave does it in an accelerated fashion.
Yeah, but like, how much time are you spending, to get all those to earn those pretty cards, right?
I have like a very steep acceleration of how much Snap I play, followed by like a lull. So like, there's a concept in Snap, which is similar to being Mythic in Magic Arena. So once I get to that, like in a given, I just don't really play that much afterwards.
Okay.
I get to the high achievement.
It's the ranked ladder situation.
Versus like Lanny will get there and then he'll want to compete with like other really good players and then like be in the top 1,000 or whatever. Yeah. Like I'm not
sometimes,
Yeah. So like I'm not that good, right? So like once I get there, I'm like, all right, achievement accomplished. I'll play next month. That's and then I just log in for my dailies or whatever at that point.
Mano, have you dug into Balatro at all?
What?
Balatro.
No, I do not know what that word is.
How do you? This is the game that Dave Williams plays second only to Magic the Gathering.
Is that the one?
The poker
that's
one,
like,
yeah.
The which one?
It's like you're dealt 7 cards and you're making poker hands.
No, that one I've never heard of till right now.
That one's excellent. I was just thinking, it's a roguelike. It's a Slay the Spire. It's $10 one time. You can get it on your phone.
Jesus.
Yeah,
but it's with actual like poker cards.
Well, it's like we're doing great. 37 minutes in.
Yeah.
We haven't spoken about a single pre-modern deck.
It's a deck. It's a deck of 52 cards, right? So you start out with 52 cards, and you get dealt 7 cards, and you click 5 cards, and you like submit, and then it's like whatever, flush, straight, and then it gives you points, right? And so you'd like play around. And so it's structured basically the same as any like roguelike Slay the Spire type thing. But then after that, you go to the shop and then you can buy an Ace of Spades that gives you extra points. Or you can buy an upgrade so that flushes pay out more points, and then so on and so forth.
Oh, I thought you meant an upgrade like you can get a foil Ace of Spades.
You can get a foil of Ace of Spades.
Oh my God.
But the foil Ace of Spades gives you, plus like whatever.
So these stay in your deck? What happened there?
Yeah. So now you have a 53 card deck, and then you play the next round, and then.
But then do the cards go away when you use them? Or?
No. You just have.
When you say play around, I'm assuming you can remove cards from your deck, etc. But playing around means drawing 7 cards and building a 5-card poker hand.
Playing around is drawing 7 cards and making multiple 5-card poker hands, and you get mulligans, right? You don't mulligan the hand, but you can mulligan individual cards, right? Okay. So if you're 4 to a straight, you just like ship 3 cards, you pick up 3
like traditional 5-card draw or whatever.
Yeah, it's like it's 7-card draw, and then you obviously there's power. Anyways, I can't really explain the entire depth of the game.
$10 for a roguelike deck builder.
You're gonna love it. You're absolutely gonna love it. Yeah,
sounds up my alley.
Yeah, that's gonna be a winner, and there's no
there's
no cosmetics to blow your life.
Yeah, I actually basically quit Snap, not over the cosmetics, but my boomer brain. There's too many rewards. Oh, gold does this, and these things all the time, and I don't even know how to figure all this out. And I was like, I don't want to figure out this fucking reward system. I quit. Also, I didn't really want to spend, hours a week on another thing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like a good toilet time situation, but certainly.
Usually my arc in Snap is like, I'll spend like all Sunday afternoon, like one Sunday in the month, and that'll be like my climb from like 95 to. Because that last That last 5
Right.
ranks takes a while.
The
right?
first,
Like,
the first,
the
few
first
months-
20 ranks doesn't take anything, but the last 5
Yeah,
is a toughie.
All right.
What
Excellent.
did, so, in full disclosure, Lanny, you said to me 6 days ago. At first, you said, "Hey, what should we even talk about?" And I was like, "I don't know." And then you suggested something.
Yeah, we should
And
just talk about
I already
rounders.
forgot. I already forgot what it was. So
we should just talk about rounders.
Was that what it was? Rounders?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I saw rounders like 4 weeks ago.
For the first time?
For the first time.
It came out in the 90s.
Yeah, I was X years old. X is less than 10.
Oh, I see.
And it was just amazing because I just like texted Lan. I was like, I'm watching Rounders. Lan texts back and he's just like, Rounders, you're Mike McD. Michael J is Worm. I'm Joey Knish. And I was just like, yes, this is exactly what. And guess what? I was like, Brian Selden, Johnny Chan, Rich Shea is KGB. I've got my thing with KGB. I can never beat him until one time I flop the nut straight and then I take him to town. It all adds up. Mano, you're Petrovsky. I need to borrow 10 grand. Who do I call? You're good for it. I'm good for it.
Who's Mike's? Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, who's Mike's wife? Or girlfriend? I forgot her fucking name.
Well, that
obviously, arguably the worst character maybe in
yeah in the history of movie. Politically speaking, yes, Lan did say that my wife was Joe, but of course our relationship, I mean, maybe she's ready to fold a bad hand. Who knows?
Yeah,
she knows.
Yeah, you're going to show up one day and she'll take the fucking ice cube trays.
It just makes me wonder who Petra is, because that's also who's the who's like
this
the hot girl
too
that's
deep
going to try to
cut for many of our listeners. Imagine you were
the Venn diagram of our listeners in Rounders fan is another circle.
It's
another circle.
Okay,
it's ATC.
Well, what's funny is it wasn't until 4 weeks ago when you finally saw Rounders.
I was just like,
community.
Oh, that's what you mean.
There was no overlap. There was a really small circle.
Right. There was a tiny little, 1/100th of a moon.
It was like the sliver. Movie's kind of bad, question mark. What was your reaction? Did you guys see it in theaters?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Course. Yeah. It was like the biggest thing to ever happen.
It was only out for like 3 weeks. That's what's crazy.
Now you're like a Rounders Wikipedia entry?
Yeah.
No, it's produced by Miramax. Really short release. They pulled it from theaters. It wasn't doing well.
Like in 98, 99, I watched every movie basically. It was like $10 to go to the movies. I lived really close to a movie theater, and like I was living at home. It was the year before I moved to New York, so like I literally just went to the movies basically every day.
So I assumed that you guys were just passing around a VHS.
This isn't porn,
right? Like you guys
in the pre-internet days.
Like you guys, well, this is my pre-internet reference, is that it wasn't really in theaters, and I just assumed that probably like out of people who play Magic competitively, they're all rooming with each other, like, oh, did you see Rounders? And just be like, no, I missed it. It's not in theaters anymore. But God, how long did it take for things to hit VHS? A year? Like a year
I saw
later.
it in the theater, so it wasn't a concern for me.
Fair enough. A year later, I'm just making this all up. A year later, I assume that you, Lan, Mano, Kibler, Hacker, just everyone, I don't know where they're located. I just assume you just stayed in the same hotel room every weekend. And then you just put Rounders in the VHS
on repeat,
and then we're just addicted to Rounders.
That also happened. That was
okay. I'm at least half right.
That still happens. Like I'll still be in like these old school Airbnbs, and we'll have something on in the background, and often that thing is Rounders.
Yeah,
that's still in the sped weekend rotation. We have a 20 movie rotation. Rounders is like high on the list.
That certainly doesn't surprise me. Well, it is funny because Lan was just like, oh yeah, BK was over for LobsterCon, right? So. Yeah. Lan was just like, oh yeah, BK was over. We watched Rounders like 2 weeks ago. I'm just kind of like,
I bet they just put it in and literally watched it. Like I imagine Lanny. I mean, maybe the first time you watched Rounders, you did it right. You sat down. You didn't really have your phone out. You were mostly watching it. But I'll bet you, like Lan and BK have probably seen Rounders between them at least 85 times.
A billion, yeah.
And they still probably just sat there and enjoyed watching it.
It's not a phone out. It's just
not
like
100%.
Yeah.
Just like I can just imagine a bunch of guys are all hanging out, having a good time, drinking beers. As soon as that VHS hits the
that first
thing.
music, that like first note in the Miramax intro, you know, that thing. Talk about when you were walking down the street and you see this store and you think of Richie talking, you know, on the Parfait app. When you hear that first note and that Miramax in the beginning of Rounders, like, you know immediately what movie this is, and you basically can't do anything for an hour.
Just it's over. The next, incredible.
The annoying thing about it was when it came out and then kind of permeated the Magic sort of pro culture, and we were young, right? I was in my 20s. Like a lot of people who are old now were young.
Yeah,
people
young man movie.
Always talk about things in terms of how much high society it was.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I needed about 0.3 stacks of high society. Right?
That's the joke, right? Because none of you had multiple stacks.
like
it also sucked. It sucked because for a while people stopped money drafting at PTs, and everyone was playing poker instead. Like the year after round, once the VHS had made its way through the entire semi-pro community,
just the one VHS,
everybody became addicted. Basically, people stopped money drafting for like a fucking year. I feel like it was awful.
I just remember having a conversation with Kibler where like we were having this conversation, and then he like asterisk caveats. He's just like, and a stack of high society is $10,000. like I know, Kibler. I saw the movie.
So this actually is an incredible story that people stop money drafting, because I'm just trying to like imagine the one guy who's superb at money drafting but just can't get a hold of poker, and he's just like, fuck, I'm down.
It's kind of a different skill set. It's not perfectly analogous, right?
I mean, it's tricky. I mean,
the best money drafters of all time are also generally
they're great
successful poker players.
Yeah,
but it's not perfect.
But the best. So many of the best everything of all time. That's what killed me. So Dave, when he was on your podcast, was just like, I just can't wrap my head around blue decks, and I was just like, you can't do like counterspell
the world championships with the blue deck.
What's that? Well, he's saying he's rusty. And I'm just
he's self-aware. He knows his 44-year-old mind isn't quite what it was, and somebody who has thousands of reps grinding these decks against each other, he might be disadvantaged even if his inherent skill.
We don't have thousands of reps. Okay, this is the Mano call out. Every single time you portray the like pre-modern spikes as these guys who like sit down and all they do is just like head to the basement, you know, just play pre-modern, play every single deck. Like
this is exactly what I'm picturing.
Build spreadsheets. This is like built in a cave shit, right? The mono blue deck was made by David Raska. He's got a job, he's got kids. Granted, the Rochester guys seem to be playing pretty regularly, but he's an exception to the rule. He booted up, he'll boot up.
We were playing more seriously before David started to like have his whiskey business or whatever, right? Like, to be fair,
no, but there was
a lot more going on.
No, Mike is lying. He's just literally lying. We played once a month, like. No, sometimes you and I played in between. And so
but that was also your honeymoon phase, right? Like you had just found it and you were just obsessed.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still obsessed. It's just, the amount of time that I can invest in pre-modern just goes up and down, right? So if anybody's like wondering when the next Spike Colony like episode is coming out, it's normally just because I was busy on Saturday. And it's like, that's when we normally record. And so whatever. And that's the other thing is like when we're recording Spike Colony, we're not playing matches of Magic. And at the end of the day, like as much as, I would spend, 4 nights a week playing pre-modern, like I end up spending, a couple hours a week just because I can't find time. But, I'm just saying the gap isn't as large as you think it is. Like, of course I'm lying awake at night thinking about the 15th sideboard card. And like,
I know. So this is a parallel thing to the thing that Mano said. So I do have thousands of reps of contemporary standard. I probably played like 6 hours of standard yesterday on Arena. And, there's like a variety of standard decks. Like there's a bunch of different red aggro decks. There's blue decks, etc. And I realized I just do best with the mono white deck because it has the least math, right? Like there's a card in standard that's basically Swords to Plowshares. So like you give them 3 life when you cast it. And then when you win by 1,000, right? Like all your guys are 15-15, but only on the last turn. And like you just didn't die for like a bunch of turns versus when you're playing aggro, like red aggro, every point matters. Like you can just miss the corner turn, and then you went from all right, that was a sure win to I'm going to lose by 70 now. But as you know, just a self-awareness from Dave. But
yeah, it is self-awareness.
Yeah.
What did you
No, but the point that I was just trying to make was just like, surely it's harder to like calculate how many ace-x combos in the range beat you and parlay that into their pre-flop behavior, versus just being like, should I counter the Siege King commander? But
the answer was yes.
yeah.
Just FYI.
Yeah.
It's pretty much yes, always, right?
No, sometimes you're going to kill them.
Yeah, you might kill them next turn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You might be able to. Well, you might be able to stifle the enters trigger. But regardless, I think.
Did you say enters trigger?
Yeah.
What kind of Magic the Gathering Foundations podcast is this become?
I'm sorry.
I don't hate that. That is also just short for enters the battlefield. I assumed he was doing that.
CIP.
But
CIP.
Yeah, Mike's either a 187 or a CIP, I think. So that's
187. Yeah, for sure.
But 187 is a kill.
Fair.
It's a homicide.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
What did we used to call? No, but Uktabi Monkey Law is a 187.
It's a kill. It's a kill.
Yeah. Manowar.
What Manowar's a 187, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's also removal.
He's along for the.
Wall of Blossoms is not a 187.
Yeah, no, he's like a reverse 187.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
He's like, how hard can I sit here?
Yeah. All right, fine. Comes into play. Fine. CIP.
And Enters is just so fast. It's the only good thing they've done. It's the only good thing they've done since removing damage on the stack. And then even that's debatable, right?
What did you think of Williams saying that sure, pre-modern was fun and all, but he's there.
He's into old school. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? Because that would not have been my read.
I think it's because he won more matches old school than he did pre-modern.
Scoreboard?
Yeah, scoreboard.
Yeah, I mean, what if I did third pre-modern in 2020
and instead you got third in old school?
No. I mean, I didn't play old school, but like maybe I just wouldn't even play anymore, right? Like who knows?
Right, if you scrubbed out of that first big tournament,
I got the needle in the arm.
I mean, this is
the only thing that stops is more pre-modern.
Yeah, I mean, this is like no. Man, to answer your question, I think that old school, like, it just kind of depends on the kind of fix that you're looking for. And I do think it's interesting that Dave was more like, pre-modern hits more square in the nostalgia. And so he was just like really into the old school gameplay. But I kind of get it, right? Because if like, I would really love to play old school if it was more accessible, because I also just like casting Black Lotus. Like I love Vintage Cube and all that stuff. And I like I like the kind of puzzle that old school offers. I also like that it's like weird. Like, when Sam talks about it, he's just kind of like, old school just forces you, like, it's just like, weird Twilight Zone magic where it's just like, you've got all this fast mana and nothing to do with it. And like, the interactions are strange. And the cards obviously look amazing and all that stuff. So it doesn't surprise me. Like he also owns his power too. So it's like, of course he's going to want to play old school. He's just like,
well, he didn't at the time. He didn't own it.
Oh, he started buying. Oh, because he borrowed the entire deck from you. That's right.
Yeah, but he bought a nice set of power that he played, yesterday at Vintage Champs or whatever.
Yeah, but I think regardless of the order of operations, just kind of like there's nothing cooler than casting getting a cast Ancestral Recall in Black Lotus. It's just like you just can't do that in pre-modern. And there's cards that I like casting in pre-modern, and actually pre-modern is like tricky because so few of the cards are particularly nostalgic. Like nobody's just like, oh man, I really miss crushing people with Dreadnought and Oath of Druids into Terror.
Yeah,
that just didn't
existed,
happen. Yeah,
right?
It just didn't happen, right? So like when you go into pre-modern and the pitch is like it's nostalgia, and you're just like, great, I'm excited to take my trusty The Rock deck to the tournament.
Is it really nostalgia? What decks exist in pre-modern that were actually?
Maybe it's more just specific card-driven nostalgia, not specific decks. Right?
Yeah, but even so, right? It's just kind of like there's. Don't get me wrong. Some of the cards are really like Counterspell is just like also a card that Counterspell enjoyers are going to like casting. But yeah, I mean, you look at the format, it's like Parallax Tide, Oath of Druids, and Dreadnought, and you're trying to like sell people on just like, well, there's also Goblin Warchief and Deranged Hermit in some decks, and it's just kind of like, But the survival rock deck is gaining steam. Everyone's pretty hyped about that, and that was a deck, like recurring nightmare survival deck that it's very different from Selden's World Champs list, but it should be nostalgic to some people. Pitch a wall of roots and get a bone shredder. It was happening then.
Right, that's what I mean. It's cards. Like your exact, most of the exact decks don't fly anymore.
Yeah.
But activating survival is very nostalgic.
Yeah. I mean, the view that I come from it is just kind of like portent foil, whatever, or like the card thing, I guess, is pretty. The Quirion Dryad thing is definitely like a card thing for me. Like it's just such a cool thing. I didn't even know why it was good, right? I just had it. I had a Quirion Dryad deck, and so now, and Madness. Obviously, everybody loves Madness, and they always come back to that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just it's also much more unique to play old school. It's like if you get into old school, like playing old school is like getting a chance to like shuffle up and play old school cards against other people is just going to feel like a privilege. It's going to be like a really special, nice thing that you get to do. And because maybe it has like a narrower audience, like old school players feel more kinship with one another.
Yeah, there's some of that.
So that doesn't surprise me.
So
and I'd want to get in.
Like what kind of Magic the Gathering Foundation's terminology are we using here?
But of course, like when I look at it, I just like
they don't have tribal anymore. It used to be tribal.
They have kinship now.
Now it's
well, it's called kindred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Just stop. What is it? Is that a word?
Kindred. Yeah. Kindred.
Kindred.
Yeah.
Instead of
like
tribal. Yeah.
You're kind. It's based on the root of kind.
So like like
is that even better?
Well,
it's not.
The word tribal is on Magic cards, right?
It's not. It's not. Well, it's been errata now. So any old.
No,
Magic
I'm just saying I could add like a physical.
Yeah.
Magic
I mean, there are also
the
depictions of white hoods on Magic cards too. Like I don't know what to tell you.
I'm not fighting you on that one.
What's more offensive though? Saying you're from this tribe or you're this kind of creature. You're this kind. Like I don't even know what's more.
It's very difficult for us three to unpack why any indigenous person might find terminology like tribal or totem to be offensive. But I'm sure some console. I mean I guess if we want to dig into it, like it's like that's like a tough thing, right? Because indigenous Americans or just indigenous people are such a like as far as minorities go, they're just not very visible. And so
this is past our purview.
It makes it a lot harder to I'm just telling you that what's happening right now is that it's hard to take those things as seriously because you just simply interact with far fewer people of that background.
I don't even need to dive into it. I'm just saying, like, I guess I'm assuming that they did some research and reached out to indigenous people and they were a lot less offended by that.
And the size of their operation means that they're going to be maximum sensitive to these kinds of things. And, it is all going to be driven by anyways, you can talk about the motives. We can have Rich Shea back on to talk more about Crusade and Jihad, but regardless.
Yeah, so we're in the middle now.
Army of Allah was that band?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Probably. Definitely. I didn't know that was one of the cards.
Yeah. There's a card, Army of Allah.
Yeah, that's definitely one. Right.
That's pretty good.
If you can find Rich Shea's treatise on this. I think he did a great job writing it out and being very poignant. I mean, at the end of the day, Hasbro is a company, and they will just do things that whatever don't actually make sense, like print pyroglyph.
Lanny, do you have notes in front of you regarding this episode?
Hell no. Do
okay.
you? What do you?
No,
you take notes? We're supposed to be taking notes?
No.
Is that the secret to getting roughly the same amount of listeners?
Right. No, I'm just all you have to do is take some notes and you'll double your listeners. No, I did notes for one episode and it was the Wiseman interview a million years ago.
Hold on, I have notes on episodes of your podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm asking you right here. I know because you want to like.
I had a mental list of things that I wanted to talk about.
I'm just curious because like this, we're right now in the middle of this, like not even just this random tribal nonsense. The last like 15 minutes to me feel like we're in one of these black holes of shit that like if I were listening to this podcast I would turn it off right now. So like I'm saying, like, do you have notes? Do you have a way to turn this back around? Or are you just relying on your just intellect and what you have in the back of your mind as what we should be talking about to steer the ship?
I mean, I did want to talk about pre-modern, but this ended up being way more fun. So
I told Lanny that I wanted to do like 20 minutes super focused episodes. So like when Lanny was on vacation, I was just like, all right, I'm going to do a Sly episode with Aaron Dix. We're going to do like a 20 minutes super focused episode on the pre-modern burn deck. Instead, we just like went into a rabbit hole for 2 hours.
Yeah, I listened to most of that one. Yeah,
there's a somewhat linear relationship between the length of the episode and the number of plays it gets. And higher is higher. It's just it just defies all. Like maybe there's like it's a parabola, so like 30 minutes will get a lot of plays and 3 hours will get a lot of plays, and like 1.5 is like the worst amount of time.
We've never done a 75-minute episode before, so we don't have any.
Yeah, we don't have any data on that. Yeah. I mean, we've done mini episodes. I mean, granted, they weren't like subject matter kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm like scrolling our stuff right now, and like literally wedged in between a 3-hour episode and a 2-hour episode is a 1.5 hour episode. And the numbers are 1,372, 835, and 1172. So
okay, one data point.
Look, people are voting with their listens, right?
That's funny. So this is all just a testament to the hangs. Like people don't want the fucking knowledge. Like I get, what if there was no little wisdom?
We're testing that right now. This is the least.
We haven't offered one piece of useful information yet, and we're like an hour in.
Yeah. No. This is
your thesis with Flint that Lanny and I had ruined pre-modern. That we had made it so
ruin is a strong word, but
it caused both of you to have no interest in it.
But not because of your pod. I hate that for a whole different reason. You ruined pre-modern because people now, like, you're accelerating the pace that people break shit, and I just want to cast ravenous rats. That's all I want to do.
According to you, we have no value. Like, the stuff that we're talking about is just hangs.
We're a symptom. We're not a leading. We're a trailing indicator rather than a leading indicator. Like, as pre-modern has intensified, the existence of our podcast is just an offshoot of that. I mean, it's actually funny because it's weird. Like, I like talking about and unpacking like the pre-modern metagame stuff, but like I just play Grow Talk. Like people think I'm like and the only reason I got super fixated, I mean, I can't say it's the only reason. The reason I got super fixated on the Raska Selden deck was just because it was just an exciting, fun thing. And all things considered, it's, it's not like a brew, but it's like you can still look at it and just be like, this is a cool, different thing that somebody did. And I think that people maybe think that we're like a little anti-fun in some ways, just because we're like, like
most fun.
You're playing some. Yeah. I'm doing a straw man here, but like some people's idea of fun is just like, let's build a deck that makes this card work because this is like a fun and interesting card. And then, we're more in the like, let's build like the best version of this deck possible. And, we're not really interested in a deck if it's strictly worse than another deck. So if you're
that is true because that's just the prime directive. But I think like there's the macro and micro versions of, I'm going to put New York in air quotes. Yeah. At New York, we're just playing with each other. We do care about who wins the championship belt. That is a thing that people actively
we
care
have
about.
There's
a physical belt, right? So when I won the meetup at the brewery last month, I know there's pictures of me with like a WWE. We care about that. Like we really
should.
Care about it in terms of one-upping each other, right? Like, like Bill Ellis is a dangerous opponent at meetups, right? SWB is a dangerous opponent at meetups, right? Like we really just want to one-up each other. And I think that like Phil Nguyen was like the biggest sort of propagator of this, because he, when he would write banding, used to be like, well, the reigning king of the hill is so forth, right? That's the.
But yeah, he's never once played a real deck.
So, but he made me want to always. I won like 4 in a row, 5 in a row, or something, because I just wanted to keep being in banding.
The fact that Phil was keeping track was enough, and actually, Spike Colony has this effect, right? So if somebody goes to Mass and plays in the Mass Quarterly, and they win it, like, we're going to talk about it. It's actually something we should have talked about. A Sutured Ghoul deck won the Massachusetts Court.
What ghoul? What ghoul?
Sutured Ghoul. It's
Manny, you're being Mike. Let me just finish my thought, and then you can be Mike. Okay. But that's just in New York. But like macro, like when we're gonna go to LobsterCon, like we tested really hard this year, right? So like last year when Lanny made top, like he is being a little disingenuous. We tested pretty hard. We tested really hard this year, and like I made my picks. I'm like SWB. I have a pick for top 8. He's playing really well in testing, and Andy Levine. I was just like he's gonna make top 8. He's really good. And part of that was we had like every weekend we had multiple like however many long sessions, and that's not us trying to one up each other. That's New York coming in to take away other people's cookies. Right? Yeah. Like we actively want to do that. That is true.
It's a difficult, it's just a difficult metric to like compare against, because the people who are also the people who actually left with the cookies are Cameron Heisey and Ian Hendry, right?
Yeah.
Like
2 years in a row.
Those are the guys who are actually super powerful pre-modern players, and they barely play. So like, we did perpetuate a self-image of like a playing real hard kind of thing. And granted, like if you just took a sample of like, 10% of New York players and 10% of Worcester players, like there are plenty of players in Worcester. They've got a great community. They've got a big community, but they're just like coming to hang out. I played against, or if you just talk to Mike Coyle, who got second place, like he was a guy, that literally just plays Legacy, and he was just like, I'm just here for the barbecue. Like he just like goes and he's just like,
those guys are local to Boston, right? Us all going up there, getting a house, et cetera, et cetera. Like we care about it in a way that is right. It is truly more than
right. But we still can't beat Michael Coyle, so I don't know.
Right?
like we still can't beat Nathan Shue, who was just like
Nathan Shue beat me and then he beat Andy.
Why do you have Tranquility in your deck and not Tranquil Domain? He's like 7th edition foil. It's just like, or I guess it was Masks foil, but he's just like, Tranquil Domain doesn't come in foil. He's like literally playing a worse card in his deck. That's a sorcery.
I've lost like one burn mirror in my entire life, and you just keep saying details from it.
Yep.
Over and over again. That's the one that I lost.
That's the guy in top 4
years.
I'm just saying, we're good. We try really hard, but like, at the end of the day, like, we're also just playing Magic, and we're I don't know. I mean, I left that weekend humbled. I mean, I didn't get to test as hard, so like, and different things happened the tournament day of, but like, I walked away and I was just like, if we were everything that we said that we were, then, we would have had the Raska deck, and playing the Raska deck was like, this is what it feels like to be prepared. Like that's all I'm saying.
Andy, quote unquote, had the Raska deck. He had decided on that deck being good. He put a ton of work into it.
Yeah.
Like we practiced that. I personally practiced that with Andy. We thought that like the red deck was going to be horrible for him. He crushed me absolutely crushed me.
Well, I mean, it is fair to say that he was the most prepared amongst our squad, and they got the results.
I mean, I picked him for top. I mean, but to be fair, Laney, I mean, I personally tested with him like probably 3 times in the last 2 weekends before LobsterCon.
He was just the Lanny of this year.
Yeah, he was, and he obviously was the Lanny of this year, right? So, that was, and I thought, I mean, SWB
did great, yeah.
Like bubble out, both days. Like he was so good in testing, and like the thing that that I was like really surprised by. I wasn't surprised by SWB's ability. It was eye opening to me because I had been sold a bill of goods that Replenish was the best deck, and that Replenish was the best deck in part because Replenish equipped with Sabo's Web had an advantage against both Peluche variants, and SWB just crushed me repeatedly in games where I had turned to Sabo's Web, and I'm like, all the scouting was wrong, right? Like, he just has his game plan. I'm never going to untap this treetop village again, but I'm going to win this game, right? And he did it over and over again. And I was just like, this guy just needs to get the Black Vices out of his sideboard. He's going to top 8 lobster. So I convinced him.
This leads me to an interesting question.
Yep.
Would you rather have Ace King or a pocket pair?
You know that Zvi said I'm not allowed to have Ace King, right? That
Yeah, because
I
you would never let go of Ace King.
I will never let go of Ace King. So he's just like, I'm like, he's like, you can't.
Okay,
you're
so
not
the
even
answer
allowed
for
to
Mike
take
is that he'd
direct
rather
bet,
have a pocket pair. What do you
right?
what do you think, Mano?
You have to muck Ace King.
I
Which pair?
Just vibes. I just vibes and reasons.
yeah. I mean, vibes are. This is a fucking really hard question, honestly. I'm trying to think of a reason. Right, just gun to my head. My first reaction, I mean, is obviously pocket pair,
Right.
because you have a tiny bit of edge.
Yeah, a little bit of edge. Yeah.
But like,
well, what if the pocket pair is 2 kings?
all right, stop.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Jacks or Ace King?
That's in the range of what
Ace
Lanny
King,
said.
Ace King off versus Jacks. This is
It honestly does matter which pocket pair. I love 8s. I fucking love 2s. I just love getting people with 2s for some reason. So it does.
Then you're
matter.
taking 2s.
Yeah. Whatever. They're all the same. They're all the same, right?
They're nearly all the same.
Right.
Jack's block is straight.
It's like as a mid range, like you've seen the pre-modern decks I play, right? Like fucking Duress, Cabal Therapy, Erratic Portal, like Tombstone Stairwell.
So you're a pocket pair then. You're just pocket pair all the way.
Well, no, does that make me a pocket pair player?
That makes mid
range grinder. So like, don't I want to like meddle around with my Ace King contraption and try and like do things?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, when I started the analogy, I had it in my head that Red Green Oath was pocket pair and Replenish was Ace King, because Ace King's a combo draw.
Sure.
Wait, so Mano, what was your record last week with your exclude deck?
1 in X. I lost to the creature decks.
For the listeners, we just had the inaugural Bah Humbug Big Apple Highlander Pre-Modern Singleton tournament. 60 card Singleton, no ban list. The winner, Andy Levine with Mono Red Aggro.
Of course, actually it was 2 in X. It was 2 in X. Now that I won my first.
I was 2-2-1. So it was just like similar to LobsterCon this year. I didn't have a chance to. So for LobsterCon this year, I didn't know I could go. Right. So I practiced and everything for my friends, but then I ended up being able to go at the last minute. So I didn't even
I'm curious. I'm just as a side chat. I'm curious what things could possibly have taken you away from LobsterCon. Like with something, like what thing?
You know, it's our busy season at work, and I was on a PTO blackout during that Friday, right? But I just basically begged my boss, and like unlike the last week,
but like.
She was like, "Yeah, fine." Okay. She's like,
"So basically, you just couldn't get a day off work, but then you're like, dude, I'll just do the work when I get back," and they're like, "Fine."
More or less, yeah. Okay. But I mean, I'm new at my job, so I like didn't want to ask. You know what I mean? Like I hadn't put anything in the kitty, before I started taking something out.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, when he got the job, he's just like, I can't go to LobsterCon because of the blackout. Yeah. It was tough. It was a tough day for all of us.
But then they put my face on sleeves, and I'm like, how can I not come?
Yeah.
I basically won LobsterCon.
So do you want to talk a little bit about Big Apple Highlander?
Or? Yeah, sure. So
I played this deck Lanny just handed to me.
Yeah. Which is just a pile of, like, literally the way this format works is it's Singleton, but all the ban cards are legal.
Yeah. Balance, Mind Twist, Time Spiral, Mind's Desire, Yogg Will, Necro.
Like
Bargain.
Things like Mana Vault, Grim Monolith.
Mana Vault, Grim Monolith. All of it's unbanned. So I just put them all in a deck. And then Mike went 2-2-1.
So it's funny because I said I would have made my deck more like SWB, and then I played SWB in the last round, and I beat him very easily 2-0, which was weird because I struggled all day. I whiffed on my first three memory jars. Like my first 3 were all donuts. And let's see, I lost to Ganology, and I drew with Ganology on time in the first first round. If I had gone first in the tiebreaker game because we had 5 turns between us, I would have won on turn 3, but I was going second. But so
it's $1 for bad beat stories.
I know it's just I'm just describing what happened, but I did lose to a highway robber. So. I decorated 2, and he highway robbered me.
Yeah, Mike sent me the text, and I was just like, I wonder if my deck sucks because I'm 4-0. I'm playing in the webcam tournament. I'm 4-0. Took down White Weenie. Took down Esper.
What are your win cons in this pile of brokenness? Just
tendrils and freeze. Tendrils and
freeze. Okay.
Well, the real win con is just sideboarding into Negator.
I was like, I wanted to eat dumplings one round, so I didn't sideboard. So that was one of my losses. But my dumplings were next to me, and I'm like, I just need to get to the dumplings. I'm just gonna shuffle up. So
What do you think? I talked to Phil. Actually, no. Who was I talking? Maybe I was talking to you, Mike, about this.
Yep.
Do we think this format is better or worse with the banned cards banned? Because I'll tell you how I built my deck. I go,
it's unplayable if the banned cards are banned.
I want to cast Exclude. This summarizes me as a Magic player in one sentence. I would like to cast Exclude. I cannot pass it in draft. I want to cast it whenever possible. I also, once I was excluding, I decided, you know what I really also want to do is kick a probe on somebody. So I basically put those 2 cards in my deck and filled in 58 other cards. That's how I built it.
So it is really tough to beat those IPA draft B pluses. I'm surprised you didn't bring in recoil into this discussion. I feel like my hierarchy is like recoil is more exciting than exclude. You can't exclude a land.
Oh, come on. No way.
So here's the thing.
Have you ever cast Exclude?
Andy's criteria on winning was
IPA
was the best because he was just like, because he plays a lot of IPA draft, right? I'm sorry, pre-modern draft, not IPA draft.
Yeah.
And he's just like, the red deck tends to outperform the broken cards in draft. So I'm just gonna. So like,
it's a more linear.
Drafts,
it's a more
right?
linear strategy, though, man. It's it's a pocket pair.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when I see Andy do so well with just a simple red deck, I was just like jealous that I just didn't play the red deck.
Well, I mean, maybe it's just easy. I didn't do the math on how many actual reasonable red cards are there. Can you assemble 37? Reasonable.
Keldon Champion is the worst card in his deck.
All right, and that's a reasonable Magic card. So like, fine.
Like he has like Anka Mishra, Curse Scroll, and his sideboard is fantastic because there's more than enough Red Blasts, Pyroblasts, Mog Salvage that you could just like put in your sideboard if you're a mono red deck.
Yeah, Meltdown. He could Meltdown. I didn't play Meltdown in my sideboard because I was like, who would really go all in on this? And then every good deck.
Everybody, right? Well, no, not every good deck. The first and second place decks were mono red beatdown and mono black beatdown. Right, and it's only because Andy
mono black. That's one of the decks. How he beat me. That deck was just atrocious.
So those were my 2 losses were to the creature decks. I drew with a combo deck, and then I beat SW. Who else did I beat? I won my last 2 rounds or something. I don't remember. But I lost to the mono black beatdown deck. But Andy scooped to him, so that's why he finished second. Like obviously, Sarcomancy deck is not going to beat Jackal Pup Lightning Bolt deck in the normal universe, I think.
You should. I mean, that means red black is. I mean, it's literally the first tournament of its kind, and like most new formats, linear aggro decks do better than Ace King. Like,
so Mike, you said sort of off the cuff before that obviously this format is unplayable without all the banned cards in the mix.
Because I think that the balance is created by people who want to play the Yawgmoth's bargains of the world, right? That's the enticement of it, and it's also that's the seduction of it, and then it's the discipline to play the red deck in counterbalance to that creates the texture of the format. If everyone's just playing fair decks, then it's just like we're just playing Commander.
Man, this red deck only gets strip mine off the.
But like Commander, like if you built Commander decks, those style of decks, and just played them heads up to win, like. I could be in for that. The worst part about Commander is the multi-table politics stuff, as we all know. But heads up, built-in grindfests. Please, like all I want to do is play heads up grindfests.
So what do we got here? There's a Goblin Goon.
I mean, this is interesting to me, Mano. So we recently mentioned that the purpose of Vintage Cube Draft is to obliterate your opponents with Ancestral Recall. Quote from John Finkel himself. So is your attitude that the best cube draft decks are exclude?
This is all coming from a place where I haven't played it much in the last couple of years when they have all these broken, the Bombardier. I don't know what these fucking cards are really, but I know that there's some really busted, more aggro cards these days. But until those things came out, I would take me a counterspell very high. And I would want to just, you went all in on your trick, counter it, fuck you, I'm going to return this, whatever, maybe not.
I mean, Teferi's response is in your cube, so.
What's that?
Wait, Teferi's response is in your cube, so.
Yeah.
What is that goblin that's 5th from the top in Andy's sideboard? Isn't that Goblin Goon?
Probably.
But there's a Goblin Goon in his main deck, which is a piece of paper.
Well, he cheated.
I don't think so. I must
Disqualified.
be like missing.
Number 2. Yeah, the piece of paper is probably something else.
This is another example. Hold on. I need to call this out. Like, this is an example. This is interesting to no one. We've moved on from the mono red deck, and Mike's still obsessed with looking at this deck pick and saying it into the mic. Like, nobody cares if Goblin Goon's in the deck. Like, literally nobody cares, right? So,
Mano, we need you every week.
I'm like, this deck has 23 lands.
Okay, well, do this on your own time. Nobody wants to hear this. It's literally not one human. Alani doesn't. I don't.
Andy is listening right now. He's like, yeah.
You're right. He does.
Oh, my God. What a breath of fresh air. There's like all 1,000 of 1,000 listeners.
This is my problem, because I do like some of your tangents and rabbit holes. Obviously, if I didn't, like, we wouldn't still be friends. Like, I do like chatting with you. But this is nonsense, right? Like, Goblin Goo. You can't even see this deck pick. Like, half the cards are glare. Like, I don't like. Let's move on from it. You know.
Banned cards in Big Apple Highlander. I think that it is. There's a few considerations here. One of them is actually kind of interesting. Is that none of the banned cards are like super like. Okay. What's the worst thing that's ever been done with the Grim Monolith? Just out of sheer curiosity. Like, what is it? What's the worst thing that has been done? Because the way when last time we talked about it, it was just like, well, you tinker it so that you can get a Thran Dynamo.
Well, no, like you cast a third turn Morphling with blue open. That was pretty good.
Yeah, you could do that in Big Apple Highlander. Like,
that won a lot of tournaments.
That sounds great. Let's play that format.
That's the format. You can do that in, you know.
But that's what I mean. But you can't really do that, because you can also just make 10 mana and cast Tendrils or Mind's Desire or Memory Jar or whatever. And granted, those things fizzle a lot because there's not that much stuff you can do.
Yeah, they didn't succeed.
That was really interesting. It gets SOBB. My first turn Ancient Tomb, Grim Monolith, tap Grim Monolith, Mana Vault, tap Mana Vault.
Say key.
Oh God! Untap the Mana Vault, which all I did was untap the Grim Monolith the next turn.
Like where this is going,
because I just did nothing for the next.
Yeah, don't stop right there. Don't stop.
Yeah,
And then like he was about to kill me, and then I like ripped a Time Spiral or something, and then I got him. But like I just did. I'm like, he's like, wow, he's like, that was the dream turn. But I just did nothing for 4 turns.
He did similar things to me, but I was playing like, this blue black. Red control deck, mostly blue black. I had a bunch of discard and various ways to meddle with people, but he crushed me with fucking Phil Nguyen's baby Gusta's Scepter. He just hid all his shit under there.
Yeah,
and then eventually, all my discard is now dead, and he just puts the Time Spiral back in his hand that he was hiding and casts it and just does whatever he wants to do.
Secret origin of that Gusta's Scepter was?
Yeah, it was so good.
No, we were at a party. We were at a party on Halloween. And Brian Hacker and Meg were supposed to come, right? And I'm texting Hacker. I'm like, yo, we're literally talking about like Hacker decks now. And Lan is like, no, the best Hacker deck is his Rome deck that he didn't top 8 with. He was like finished 10th or something. And I'm like, the Gusta Scepter deck? And SWB's like, what's Gusta Scepter? I'm like, well, it's a 0.
Oh, come on. You just learned this 2 weeks ago? What the fuck?
On Halloween night, right? If it's a 0, but it's really good with Windfall, right? In an Academy deck. And he's just like, oh my God, that's going straight into my Big Apple.
He did that exact thing to me. And then he cast Scepter, hit a card, and Windfalled.
Yep.
Like,
the hilarious thing is, Wednesday night, we're all basically the same friend group is at John's on Wednesday. And I'm like, then we go to Cam's for Halloween party on Thursday, right? And I'm like, all the people at this party are either people I hung out with last night or people I'm hanging out with on Sunday, because there was a meetup at Andy's house on Sunday. So like, it was like there was a Venn diagram overlap, but it was like a Venn diagram overlap of just like 2 different events I had that week.
What's crazy is that SWB then needed to add Gusta's Scepter to his TCG cart for his Big Apple Highlander Storm deck.
Isn't that a great bit? Oh, and so the other thing is, I'm texting Hacker this whole time. I'm like, yo, where are you? I was promised Hacker. And he's like, we're literally just talking about Hacker decks now. And he's just like, talk about anything else.
Sounds about right. I mean, it's like hard. So what you're saying, Mano, is like true. Like if getting Yogg-Willed out every single time on turn 3 is going to happen, then of course you have to ban Yogg-Will, right? If you get bargained every single time, if you get twisted every single time, of course you have to ban those cards. But you're parlaying one copy of Monolith into one copy of Mind Twist, and then after you twist them for their hand, you might just lose to top deck.
Do nothing for 8 turns.
Yeah, you might just lose to top deck.
I was honestly asking that question because, like we said, there's not much broken stuff you can do. There's a couple of storm cards. You can, like, the only way SW ever won was he had to draw his processor. That was like his only win con or whatever. But there's just not that much you can do. So I was honestly asking you. I
think it's a relevant question. And Mano, when did you stop playing contemporary Magic? When did you stop playing Wizard supported formats?
Like, I don't know. What was Brussels Worlds was 2000, and then Invasion came out after that. And I probably played some limited Invasion block stuff. I probably played limited-ish through the end of the pre-modern era.
Wow.
What's that?
That's 23 years ago.
Yeah. I didn't play a constructed deck since Worlds Brussels. I'm sure that I played a good amount of Invasion block limited.
I have a distinct memory of you being at John's house one night in 2000, I want to say 5?
Sure.
With Jamie, and like you guys were just getting back in, and Jamie had just bought like I think vintage cards for Time.
I think Mano will play any limited. It sounds
okay. Well, that's the Flame Fusillade deck that I built.
Okay.
Yeah,
for
but
Grand Prix Philly when it first came out.
No, but I was there. We were playing constructed. We were playing Ravnica block.
I wasn't.
You were there.
Okay, fine. I did play limited. With the thing, I played limited all the way through. I drafted a good amount on
because then I remember.
But I played lots of limited.
I don't remember where you were going, but we walked from John's house in Soho to Union Square because I remember you asking like I'm going to put this in a very political way. It was just like, what perception of your political ideas were broadly. Just like, how do people actually perceive this, right?
Well, that's when Michael J came up with the Mano to Finkel scale of politics.
What ones? Yeah, I've come a long way since those political days.
No, I'm just saying because I remember having this conversation.
I do remember this. This was the same day. I think this was the same day that I asked you. No, was Brian Schneider there? Was that a different day?
Brian Schneider was sometimes there. He might have. I don't think he was there that night.
Okay, but there was a time where Schneider was there. So Justin Schneider came to our house for a sped weekend. And like around that time, and he went 20-2. He just like destroyed people.
Typical Justin Schneider.
Okay. And so 2 things happened. One, we were short an Underground Sea after that weekend. Okay. and so 2, I had to ask B Schneid, like, would your brother come to play casual draft in my basement and like cheat like all weekend or whatever? And he's like, he literally goes, yeah, he probably would. So
fucking worm. That's the worm of that group.
He is a Pro Tour champion with a 64 card deck that had 16 lands.
Yes. He's also come a long way. This was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah,
at this point.
I do have to say,
champion, how far had he come?
As I hear so many stories about you guys from when you were in your 20s, and they don't paint a good picture. Like Lance just like talking about the whole. It was actually just it was so great because like we got a big Airbnb, right? And so I scoped the Airbnb for like 16 people, and we had like 18 people, right? So all weekend we're like buying each other brunch and like whatever and cars, and I'm driving people, paying for parking, and people are like, oh, what do I owe you? And I was like, look, I'm just running a tab on everybody. I already owe people money because we ended up overfilling the house. So whatever people paid in for the house, they're going to get a portion back because we got extra people in. And I was just like, yeah.
I wasn't originally going to be there, but then
a couple people dropped out, but then people came back in. So like at the end of the day, everybody got a bed. It was just like the perfect situation. Yeah. But I had like a little bit of extra cash because, you know, we had a few extra heads, and I was just like, yeah, obviously I'm not going to like make my room free or make my room $- just because, you know, I got the Airbnb. And Land was just like, well, let me tell you about this hotel room thing that Redacted used to do. And then I was just like, oh, well, y'all are horrible people. But no, I mean,
I was never that degenerate. That was like, you had to be real
never even occur to me to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, Redacted person apparently would just like get people in for like they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I got you a room. It's $25." But then they would put 6 people into one room, and then they would have a room on their own. And so
Oh, that's much better. I was talking about the time in like Rome and these like where like Nate and Opalka would just charge infinite things to random rooms all weekend long and just like,
Jesus.
oh, yeah. Like
you're just like putting 6 to a room and taking 1 to yourself for free is one thing.
I thought you're right. It's like this reminds me of a joke, an old Dave Chappelle joke. I actually saw him live once, and he was doing this thing where he was pretending to be like the devil, right? And he's like, dude, as a society, we are just much, much worse than the devil. And he was doing this bit where like the devil, he's like, oh, I am the devil. I'm gonna take these kids down to the abandoned warehouse. And then the random fucking human being comes in and he just goes, shut up, devil. I'm gonna go fuck these kids in the butt. And the devil's like, well, that's way worse than what I was going to do or whatever, like that reminds me of so you're telling me the story. Oh, some degen like scraped by an hotel room. And I'm like, no. It's much, much worse than that. They sent God knows how many meals and whatever.
Bunch of fucking Mike McDee's, and they actually turned out to all be worms. It's just like,
the
all worms.
The best thing I know of is a girl whose dad paid for her credit card, but then she would always pick up the bill like at dinners, and then people would just like pay her their portion. But then she was double dipping because her friends were all paying it, and her dad was
that's a classic move, right? If you got you can do a lot of damage with your dad's credit card, but just that sounds like a scrape. Anyways, I actually don't remember.
Yeah, what were we talking about?
What we were talking about.
I mean, I have this deck pick, and I'm going to make this Big Apple Highlander deck.
I had concepts of a plan. I think it's we were talking about the ideal cube environment. I think that it's hard to say because I do think that when I like the games where I've won in Big Apple Highlander, it's been pretty miserable for my opponents. Like if I was my opponent, because like I have to like I put bargain into play, and then I was just like, shit, I've never done this before. So then I was just like, draw a card. And then I was like, draw a card.
Yeah.
And then I was like, draw a card. And like, I'm pretty good at being like, this is my plan for the turn. I'm going to draw my card for the turn. If it's like a counter spell, that's going to change this. And when you have bargain in play, you have to do that like 10 times in a row. And like, you still win anyways. But if you're like me and you're like trying to find the line, it's just like painfully slow. Same thing. It's just like, I was just like, okay, I have a lot of mana. I've got a lot of stuff in my graveyard. I'm going to play Yogwill. And then I like played Yogwill. I'm like, I know this is a win, but it's going to take me a while to find it. Yeah. And then there's all this random stuff. You're just like, oh, like if your opponent has Necro and you windfall them, then they exile their hand. It's just like a bunch of like nonsense caused by these cards. And like, they are really, really powerful. But it's tough because it's like, when are you going to play Yogwill and Necro and bargain? Like, you're just not.
I mean, the first game I played, Ganology played bargain against me. I had forgotten the experience of playing against a bargain. Like, you've already lost, right? Like,
yeah.
Like but it is a literally death by 19 cuts.
Yeah, it's crazy that bargain was ever legal in pre-modern though.
It's like when it's Necro, you have to like
you have to find
That's how you get killed by a highway robber, right? I'm setting up this kill, got it, go. Looks like I'm dead.
Yeah.
Like, oh, highway robber, you're at 2.
It's really funny because it's the inverse of the Necro of one of the Necro stories that is like in a famous Michael J article where you like talk your opponent. Yeah. Or the famous thing is just like, if you're necroing to 3, you might as well necro to 1, right? It's like you either necro to 4 or 1. You don't necro to 3.
Yeah, so the funny thing was I had Tainted Pact, my one addition to the deck. I was like, Lanny, why don't you just make that second island and that second swamp snow covered and we can play Tainted Pact. I had the Tainted Pact in my hand, but I had no blue cards in my hand. Because I could have Tainted Pact for the Force and won the game, but I had no blue card.
Yeah, well, the answer is, of course, you should have just necroed to 3 because your opponent might cast Highway Robber on you. That was a 1/8/7, wasn't it?
I necroed to 2 so that I would be able to Force of Will if possible, if necessary.
Oh, well, then you just
I just didn't have a blue card.
Yeah, whatever. Anyways, that's Big Apple Highlander. The reason I asked you a little, Mano, about the Contemporary Magic thing was just that when they introduced the Pioneer format, they literally introduced it, and there was like, the only banned cards are fetches. Figure this shit out. And I think we should do the same with Big Apple Highlander. Like, I think we should just
ban fetches?
No. We should just ban cards as we go. Like,
I actually like now that I feel like I'm not great at attacking formats in the dark, but what I do, and I'm sure this is probably true for everybody, is one tournament is plenty to fly up a learning curve. I always feel like my first time playing a seal deck or whatever, I don't know anything. And I play one and I feel like a master. Yeah. And so that kind of happened with Big Apple Highlander, is that now that I've done it once, and obviously I could have played a better board. Like I could have played Burning Wish and a couple tutors and played Meltdown and played some other things or whatever to have a little bit more game against these decks. I'm fine playing it in this space with these band cards now, having gathered this data and had this experience where I played 5 rounds and saw how it works. So I think, even to answer my own question, it probably is better, A, because it's better and people want to do that stuff, but B, because of what you said with Pioneer. Let's just ban the absolute minimum shit and figure it out.
Yeah.
Mano, what if you just played some busted cards in your deck? Like, you could just play, like, Mana Vault and Grim Monolith and just cast Morphling. Like, I thought your black creatures were terrible, personally. Like, watching you play, they were like, other parts of your deck seem super, super elegant, and then you've got like this Hypnotic Spectre that you never cast, just like sitting in your hand.
Sure, but it's like disruption, right? Like I was leaning
It's not disruption if you don't cast it.
Fair, but maybe the mana base was a little off, or maybe I cheated. The mana base also at the last second. I did throw in Brainstorm at the last second because I'm like, fuck, I forgot that card existed. So I cut 3 lands for the black-red slow fetch, the blue and the black-blue slow fetch, and a Brainstorm. I cut 3 basics for that. So I did have a couple of things. My mana base was admittedly not the best. I did not spend a lot of time on it. Maybe I can make that better. But I did want to lean hard into those creatures because I thought more people would have control decks, and Hypnotic Spectre is good against control decks, right? So like that's what
on the first turn that you were casting it like on, I don't even know what turn, 7.
Well, on turn 7 it's obviously not great. It's a gray ogre, right? But like that's where I was in my own head, and I also have duress and whatever therapy and various ways to clear paths and my own counter spells and whatever, right? So I also played Headhunter. That's a fucking magic card. That one's 2 mana Spectre that I can play on turn 2 under your counter spells.
Yeah, that's why don't people play that in pre-modern?
I don't know. It's one of the top cards. It's like the top of my pre-modern stack that I always want to make work. And it's obviously
we have to give this one to the viewers. Headhunter is exactly as described. 1 and a B for when it hits a player, that player discards a card. It also has Morph, and the flip cost is
it's only a B, but it's also a 1/1 with no evasion. It doesn't line up very well against Grim Lavamancer, Mog Fanatic, Lightning Bolt, Lava Dart, or Swords to Plowshares.
You've only named cards from 2 colors.
I do think it lines up well against Swords to Plowshares. You're doing very well for yourself if you get your Headhunter Swords. Even though it's mana disadvantage, you still feel good about that trade.
Really?
I mean, Mano's deck is sick. I actually am, I think Mano's deck is definitely a vision for what the format could look like if it did have a banned list. Because these are the IPA draft all-stars.
I think it can still look like this with our current ban list if I just did, tinkered better or revise it based on what I've learned.
Yeah. I mean, that'll be a fun thing to do. Is like we can have our pet decks, and then like I made the Storm deck, and my thing was just like, okay, there's 2 things that happen. Either this is like totally broken, and we can just like decide to get it out of the way like while we're ahead, or it can be interacted with, and it's not that big of a deal. Like I played against Jared Doucette who was playing mono white, and he just like put Glow Rider into play, and I was like about to kill him, and I was like, oh great, now I have to find a Chain of Vapor, and he killed me before I figured out how to get a Chain of Vapor.
All right, so here's the real problem with Big Apple Highlander. I'm looking at this deck. Do I have to buy 5 Dark Ball Lightnings, or can I just buy the 1 Dark Ball Lightning?
What do you mean?
You have to buy 5.
I have to buy 5, right?
Yeah, I was gonna actually text you because somebody was selling them on Discord, but Mike notably has these horrible alternate art, old bordered foil promo ball lightnings that he triumphantly flounce in his red deck instead of ball lightnings from the dark. Everybody boo at him.
Wait, but this is not even in your troll deck? This is just your regular?
No,
his quote unquote beautiful deck. I gifted him FBB lightning bolts. And they have to share a deck box with these disgusting.
I thought they were special. They were like they were in like their foil. They've got like they're in the old border.
Ball lightning was printed in the dark. You have to use the dark.
Okay,
Right, we
so
learned this last week with Williams. No matter what, OG trumps all.
Yeah.
okay,
right?
I've been planning to upgrade these ball lightnings, but I'm just going to just buy one for the Big Apple Highlander deck. I already
you have to
this
buy
set.
5.
I have
Before
to buy
you
5,
click
right?
add to cart, you add up to 5.
The dark. Holy shit, these are expensive.
How much are they?
I mean, LPs, HPs are like 18 or whatever. Like decent condition are like 30 plus.
Oh,
30,
come
that's
on,
fine.
man.
Yeah, it's
I
insane.
already have these other ones.
Well, this one's on you because I'll bet you 2 years ago they probably weren't $30, is my guess. Right?
True.
Yeah. So you dug your own grave here.
Is there FBB available? Is printed in whatever?
Tons of FBBs.
Yeah,
tons.
Yeah, FBB it up. FBB is fine.
I think I just own I don't know what the card to the left of Violent Eruption is, but I think I just own this whole deck.
How are we still looking at this? Holy shit.
I thought we were talking about Big Apple Highlander again.
We were, but we're not talking about the red deck. Nobody gives a shit. We know you could put 37 aggro red cards in a deck with 18 mountains and 5 random lands and probably go 3.5 and 1.5. We all know this.
One of them's a strip mine.
Right.
It's not hard to play pocket jacks. Just get it in. Let your opponent figure out their ace king situation.
Well, I was really close. It's 16 and 7. He actually played 20. I didn't look at this. I just guessed.
23 lands.
It's literally 23 lands and 16
technically one of
runs.
them is a fire energy, but yeah.
Whatever. But I just guessed all that stuff. And now you have me looking at the deck list. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. We have to
This is
change
what
this
happened.
up.
You see what I have to deal with?
It's rough. It's a rough life. I'm sorry.
I
Like I
just
said
love,
before, now
I love
as a-
Magic the Gathering.
Mike,
I
hold
played-
on.
I played Standard Arena until 4 a.m. last night.
Oh my god. Banned from Spike Quality Podcast, Arena,
Well, I
Standard.
I figured out my problem with this whole interaction and my general problem with why I don't like Spike Colony. I may have solved you, Mike, in a nutshell. Okay.
I'm listening.
I do think you're a great storyteller. You're very charismatic. Clearly, I like chatting with you. Okay. What I don't think you're good at is discerning how interesting things are to the general public.
You're calling me Pog? I'm Pog now?
Listen, when RNG hits and you land on something that is actually interesting, you crush it because of your charm and your charisma. But when you land on a glossy Goblin Goon, red deck, whatever, your charm can't pull your way out of it because it's just not interesting, period, to anyone other than Andy Levine. That's it. So but I think I may have just solved it on the pod. So we have to work on and that's just Landy's job. He needs to keep you more focused on things because he is reasonable at discerning what's interesting.
You told me
on your charm and your charisma, and that would make a great pod, I think.
I think it multiplies your exasperation when you actually mention it. You're just like, I can tell when you're holding it back.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, I have to, because you have to find the line, right? I can't just tell Mike that nobody's interested.
But you can. I just did it 4 times.
I actually don't know if that works. I don't know if that's
You're right. It doesn't because he's bringing it up again.
I don't know if
You're
that's
right.
the line. I think the
I
line.
would have had Pyrostatic Pillar in the main deck, I think.
Oh my god!
Quick hits. Quick hits. We were in the booth. Sean Sullivan drops in. You wanted to bet me who was going to win the tournament, and we both took Selden. So Sean Sullivan staked both sides and hit us with a drink after Selden make the finals. Super great guy, super fun time.
Me and him and Robin Lund, by the way, we built the OG pre-modern zombies deck 5 years ago.
Oh, yeah?
That did well, put it on the map. Nobody was playing Lord of the Undead and fucking Robin.
That is an expensive card.
I know.
I only own one because it's just how many decks does it go in?
I'm struggling a little bit with the concept of tuning a deck that mostly our auto includes.
It's been tuned a lot though. They've really found these bad moons. These bad moons do a heavy lifting.
How did you find? Did they not know it was legal?
Well, I don't know. It's not obvious if you want to play bad moon in your deck, right? Is it
yes?
You might want to play cards like Tombstone Stairwell. You might want to play what's the fucking cycling guy? Gem Palm Corrupt. There's probably 100 cards in a zombies list, and whittling it down to 60 is
Gem Palm Polluter,
interesting.
I think is the name.
Yeah, Gem Palm Polluter is the name. Tombstone Stairwell costs 4 mana, so it very clearly isn't. I think it's a good debate if you want to play Cabal Therapy. That is a card that would be hard to remove from the deck until you play it. But I do have to say, it is weird to me that the card whose text is all black creatures get +1/+1 was not on was in the considering.
Manny, would you?
It was in consideration. It was in our sideboard originally.
Because that's how many are in their zombies deck too.
Yeah, I don't even know where zombies is now. The only reason I mention this is because Sean, while being a great dude and running awesome tournaments and just being a generally superhuman,
awesome dude,
does have some pre-modern deck building chops, and we've spent some time in various spaces over the years, and he's been on some. He's been in some of these PSSs, you know.
Yeah, I think Black Red Muse was exciting stuff. I think adding Burning Wish to it was cool. I think. I'm
going to do a little Mike-esque tangent here. I won my winning in with that monthly with the new Burning Wish version. I kept a 0 land hand on the draw with 2 baubles in my hand.
Because Justin Schneider was sitting right next to you.
Yeah. Mano. I kept 0 lands because I had like less therapy, rat. Like I had basically it all. Like and I was playing against Dreadnought.
Yeah, it's a keep.
I just fucking went for it. Yeah. And I actually missed on turn 1, but then I just bobbled my way there and got there, and he didn't have turn 2. And I had terminates and stuff too to kill a potential Dreadnought if he did land it. But whatever. That was like an exciting moment for me, like proving these baubles in the moment. Like, hey, if I came here to do this, right? I can't mulligan this hand if I think that this card's good.
Yeah, Ace King, baby. Let's go.
Put the money in the higher center. EV? Digging up a zombie cutthroat or just adding a freaking 25-cent zombie cutthroat to a card?
Oh, by far adding a zombie cutthroat.
Right? Like there's just no way finding.
Just make sure you don't click some weird new to list version. Click OG.
Okay.
Trust me, zombie cutthroat has not been reprinted.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing these days though.
Yeah, I don't know. There was so much else that I wanted to talk about, but we didn't hit any of it, of course. So good job.
This is just an episode of All Things Considered. And an episode of just some guys hanging out at a coffee shop, aka the Spike.
It really is the worst of both worlds. We got we really distilled the worst part of our respective podcasts.
I was trying to talk about a deck, and Mano keeps shutting me down.
No, you know the episode of Rick and Morty where they go in the thing to get rid of all the toxins from their body, and their toxins are just like living in toxin world, trying to fight their way out to the real world. This is the toxin world right now. It is all the worst parts of all of our podcasts and arguably personalities in one nice tiny little thing.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think it's like hard when on one hand, I think that together we bring the best out of each other in like a vibe thing, but as like content creators, it's like too much birthday. I think that's what we learned. Which is crazy because every time I talk to you, man, I'm just like, oh man, I guess the idea was that I just wanted this as an excuse to chat and catch up because we just don't see each other that often. You know, you're off doing your thing. Obviously, old school's not your thing, but
I don't even play much Magic. You know, like
yeah. But you came out for Big Apple.
Well,
I'm sure we can.
I was so happy to see you at Big Apple, man.
I only knew about it 3 days or 4 days before, but it was
play
on
out
Sunday.
The top 8. I left to go home to watch.
They played out the top 4. Levine won.
Oh.
They actually played it. He won. So he went 4-0, concede, won his last 2. He went 6-0 in matches played.
Oh yeah, I mean, I assume so. I guess I don't know that. I don't know that for sure.
I left after the Swiss because I was already.
The plan was for top 4 to play, and like he wouldn't scoop last round if they weren't going to play top 4, right? Because then you just play so that you can. Just whatever, because it's the last match that you can play, and playing matches is more fun.
But yeah, all of the tickets you left me. You generously left me your raffle tickets. I put everything into
Storm Islands.
The altered. No, because I knew
I put everything to Storm Islands.
Everybody was going for Storm Islands, and I was like, well, fuck it. I'm just going to throw everything into this memory jar that probably nobody wants. But as it was a sick altar, and our mutual friend Jeff White has an enormous hard on for that card, and I think he would have really loved it. So if we won it together with these raffle tickets and gifted it to him, it would have been a nice story. But still, even with all that plot armor, we did not get there. So
that's tough. I have not heard that much story equity for a raffle.
Right. Like how many people were putting tickets in that?
Yeah.
Oh. A random number generator.
That beats. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Big Apple Highlander, it's exciting. It's interesting. Hopefully it catches up. I don't know if you guys want to talk about pre-Fire Modern. It sounds like Mano has never played a match.
I haven't studied. People are asking me to play it, and I haven't even looked at Fran's video yet.
Do I even want to ask this? Oh, is this the thing where you like you play modern. It's actually modern cards, but it stops in like 2015 when shit
It
started going
stops
crazy.
at Fire Design.
Yeah.
So it's like the good modern, like with
When did Fire Design happen?
So Fire Design started with War of the Spark. I think War of the Spark is the first set that was designed under this mandate.
What's that, like 2018, 2019?
2019, yeah, summer of 2019.
Okay.
I mean, this was like, on a personal level, one of the reasons why I love pre-modern is pre-modern ends right when I started playing Magic. And so it like kind of captures like that very specific moment for me. And then Fire Design also started or pre-Fire ends right when I started playing Magic again. So Magic got released on Arena, and that's what got me back into the game. And the first set on Arena was the Ravnica set. So they do 2 Ravnica sets, and the third one is the first Fire Design set. And so I knew nothing about Modern as a format. So like right when I got like back into Magic, the Modern format at that time.
Is War of the Spark the one where there's at least one Planeswalker in every deck?
Yeah. Mano's probably drafted it.
I have not. I quit drafting in whatever the dinosaur block was. I just
so that's right
Ixalan.
before. That's right before.
Yeah.
That's the year before. So that would
because I didn't like the one after. I hate Morph too. Like the set after that.
There's like 7 kinds of morph, and they're all legal right now.
Yeah.
And they're all different.
Yeah.
Sounds so fucking miserable. I would never in a million years play one single game of Fire, whatever you just call it.
The thing that's crazy about it was like you used to have to show your morphs to show that you weren't cheating when you morph down a card now.
Yeah.
Now there's so many different kinds of morphs, and most of them don't require having the face down mechanic. Right? So like a lot of the cards are basically like turn over the top 2 cards, play one of them face down. So like there's and like they all have different parameters, right? Some cards you can play face down. There's Morph, Megamorph, Disguise, Manifest Dread, and they all have different rules. But the cards are all face down 2/2s. But they literally have different rules.
And you don't have to reveal them all.
No, because only Morph has the condition that you had to play it as a Morph. Most of the other cards just get played down. Like there's cards that disguise and there's cards that manifest dread. And it's crazy to me that disguise and manifest dread are legal at the same time, in standard at the same time. 2 different face down, and they literally have different rules.
Is the world on board? Like, because obviously this sounds miserable. Does the world think this is miserable too, or do they like this?
I have not heard a single complaint.
Like it's the thing that is really that I don't like about it is disguised creatures have ward. You probably don't know what ward is. Right?
I knew ward is you can't target unless you do something special.
Yeah, it's like weak hexproof. It's
most
like
of the time you pay.
Hexproof. Yeah.
I only know because there's like 3 cards in the Vintage 2 over the years that have had ward.
So like it is. I think it is a bad player experience to have 2 different cards in play that are face down. One of them has ward and the other one doesn't, and that's not intuitive, right? Like,
well, the way they make it intuitive is that the one with ward has like animations on it. So
but what if you're playing paper Magic?
I understand. I'm just telling you that people don't play paper Magic, so whatever. Okay, you're supposed to use the token that comes in the pack that says this is Disguise.
Yeah, I've never done that one time.
Anyway, shout out to Fran setting up pre-Fire Modern. I think that's definitely interesting. It'd be. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a interesting thing because, we've got Mano. You're like nostalgic for this old school stuff, 93, 94. I'm nostalgic for 2003. And now we've got people nostalgic for 2018.
I mean, pre-2019 Modern was awesome.
If I played a bunch of Modern between 05 and 15 or whatever, I would
Didn't exist in 05. Did it?
Whatever. But I played those cards in various
2011.
I feel like Extended still existed in 05, right?
Right. But I did not play one constructed match between the year 2000 and the year 2015 when I discovered old school.
Yeah.
Not once did I build a 60 card.
Yeah, I that was something that I wanted to get in on because I know so little about you, but I guess we'll just have to save it for another day because we were just looking at this deck pick for 30 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah.
But I'm still looking at it. I'm going to make the
whatever.
deck
I'm fine to do. This is actually great because I don't know if we'll find out if people think this is interesting or not. Probably.
Yeah,
not.
we'll reprise it. We'll put it on the deck.
We can also just do this again if you want. An easy. This is a very easy podcast for you, I imagine.
I was gonna. Oh, they're all pretty easy, as you can say.
What do you think is the preparation for the podcast?
It's actually the
You
long.
think we have like extensive notes beforehand?
The
And-
only
No,
thing-
I asked before. I didn't assume. I was just curious because we were getting so far off before. And I was
Yeah,
trying
yeah. I had some thoughts, but like I said, I wanted to start. We talked about rounders, which was the only thing that I really needed to.
Right. So we basically hit all of our goals.
Yeah. And I wanted to. I didn't have time to, or I just like next time we'll have Lan on, and then it'll just be the quadruple.
If we had us three plus Lan in a 4-way, like, is that make it better or worse? I think it might be.
Lan makes everything better.
I think the Lan appearances on our podcast have yielded very good episodes.
Yeah, they're beloved. They're universally beloved.
I mean, the Lan, all things considered episode, Heartbroken, is literally one of my favorite.
Yeah, people are coming up
podcasts
to me and saying,
ever.
like, I don't even know anything about
So
this
good.
person.
I mean, and then there's like the whole story about me getting the book, and I'm like,
Yep.
and it's just like,
I love
and it's just like it's like a 11 out of 10 fuck up on my part at the same time of Lan knowing me so well
Yeah.
to like,
yeah,
to have like anticipated this level of
it is pretty perfect.
right. Like it's just I don't know. Like you can't script that like happened in real life.
Well, that's why we don't, as professional, to use the term loosely, podcasters. That's why we don't have any notes or anything. We just audible. We read the room. We can feel these things out. If we had notes, it would not feel organic, right?
That may or may not be true. that sounds like a cop out.
Like, do you think like actual professional podcasters?
Yes. They have even Monster of the Week has like transition music and they take breaks, and I can only imagine that in between breaks they like have a quick session where they're just like, okay, cool, let's just think about how we're going to start the next thing. Like I can't even like when I started Spike Calling Podcast, I was like, this is going to be the best bit ever. I'm going to start every week off introducing Mike in a different way, and this is going to be great. And then like 14 episodes in, I sort of just gave up on coming up with this.
Yeah.
I couldn't even come up with a one-liner.
Well, it's kind of like how Jared has to come up with a new intro every time.
Yeah, but he does it though.
He still does it.
He doesn't falter on it. And then of course they also keep their cast under 2 hours on a regular basis. So
we're at 2 hours now. It is 6 p.m.
It can be done.
If we did do some prep, because like our podcasts are like reasonably successful for our tiny niche in the magic world.
I have to assume they're equally successful to Monster of the Week and pre-modcast.
Right.
Well, I can tell you, as having a wider
totally...
podcast, right? Like, there are a lot of people who could be listening to Magic podcasts who aren't in, let's say, a single thousand number of people.
But this is why I'm asking you though, because you said they like might take some notes or have an actual plan of something they're going to do.
But you're just doing this thing that you love in a sustained way. And the same thing is like what me and Lanny are doing, just this thing that I just like to do it. And people the fact that people like congregate on my Facebook group and like participate in Discord and stuff like that, that seems pretty great to me. Right. And like, we're not trying to make a living doing this, right? One thing if you're like, all right, this is going to be my sustenance, then
I'm down.
Treat it differently.
We can split the difference though. We can make sure that we hit certain topics. There was and generally speaking, we actually used to make the note that it's been a big week in pre-modern, and it has been a big week in pre-modern. People are battling it out at EW. There will be a larger EW event. There just was the Massachusetts Quarterly. There was a Massachusetts Monthly. There's deck lists.
Oh, is the Eternal Weekend Pre-Modern event today?
It's on Sunday.
You should tag.
Wait, how can it's on Sunday? But that's the day that Detail's in top 8. How can
most people who play pre-modern will not have top 8'd the vintage and legacy championship.
Yeah, but Detail could just straight up win the pre-modern tournament.
Well, he can't anymore.
Not if he's playing in the
he can drop from vintage.
Yeah, he could just take 8th place and go play
man,
that's a pretty baller. If he did do that, if he dropped from that and then just won pre-modern, I mean, Jesus Christ.
I don't even think he brought a pre-modern deck, to be honest, but I could be wrong. I mean, I don't know, but there's a lot. You have to
pre-modern.
You have to bring a lot of decks to Eternal Weekend, though. You have to bring your vintage deck. You have to bring your legacy deck, and then he probably brought a pre-modern deck, maybe because he probably just had one, so he can just toss it in the bag. But right. Detail travels light. He doesn't
Right, he's not bringing his whole thing. My first time I went to Eternal Weekend in like 16, 17. I brought like my entire collection, like multiple 4,000 count boxes,
Yeah.
just like everything. And now I'm at the point where I bring 75 cards.
Well, that's actually what BK did. BK didn't decide on his deck beforehand. He just brought every card that's legal in pre-modern.
Yeah.
And then he just like ran down. He's like, "Hey, I need a Cephalid Coliseum." And I was like, "I got that. That's the only card I have." That's the only card I have.
What decks did he end up playing on day?
He ended up playing Landy Hoth on day 1, and then on day 2 he played the Terragen deck, I think. And he lost to Rich Shea on coverage. Because
Did
Rich
you go
Shea.
back and listen? Did you go back and listen to our coverage?
Oh yeah, I did.
I have not gone back yet. I kind of want to. It's
It
out
was
there, right?
I think it's not on Twitch anymore. It might be on YouTube in the future.
I think I watched it on YouTube. Do I play uncommonly fast on camera? Because I constantly got the comments from like, does Mike hate Magic so much he wants to get this?
No, you play, you move, you play pretty fast because you don't think about anything you're doing. So no, okay. So this is an interesting topic. It's not an interesting topic for a present company. I kind of wanted to ask it to some crushers, and I've just got a couple of boomer intuitions. But you guys don't like. Mike doesn't tank. Do you tank, Mano?
I do. Yes, I tank. I do generally play. I do all the simple stuff very quick. I can't stand it when people spend forever doing extremely obvious things.
Yeah.
And so I do that.
Yeah.
But then
counter your siege gang is like
tank,
decision.
every 3
I
turns.
have to plan my end game sometimes, right? Like to count if my opponent can kill me, and then decide when I have to try to kill them.
I'm pretty sure you never tank. Like and Mike's only thinking is like tapping the table when he's counting, and then the rest of the time he just rips it. And I find that sort of fascinating because obviously chess players tank. Chess players have a clock, so their tank is literally defined. Poker players have get put on a clock if they think too long. And I found that when I tank, I found that it's actually a skill. So I caught myself in kind of a skid. I was losing a bunch of matches in spots where I took like 2-3 minutes on a decision and then came to the wrong one. And I was like kind of super fascinated by that because I was like, I somehow always managed to tank into the wrong decision. And like, I just can't organize my thoughts. And I realized how much better there is that I could be at the game if I like understood how to think right. But then I like look at some people and I'm just like, well, not that Mike's the best example, but I'm like, it seems that some people just play like, how fast does John play, for instance?
Yeah.
John plays super fast.
Yeah.
So P. Sully taught me to never think on my own turn. He said, think on your opponent's turn, make decisions quickly on your turn.
Yeah, that's a good hack.
Yeah,
right?
he said that it makes it harder for you to be read. But the other thing is, I also play on my. I don't know if you saw this, but Brooke, John's partner, was asking a question about how playmats work, and there was like Kai, John. We're talking.
Yeah. She was asking like what features people like in their playmats.
So Chapin taught me to zone my my play area so that I don't have to think, right? So like the structure of my play area makes all the decisions for me. So like how I position my cards.
Yeah, because you have rectangles on your playmat.
Yeah,
and
so like
that saves one neuron from firing in your brain as to where to put the cards in your graveyard, as opposed to dedicating it to counting to 20.
I only play one way. I mean, and that way is blue-white control.
Yeah, but I give Mike so much shit for this. Mike has spin down dice, and then sometimes he just turns them in the wrong direction. So like he has a 20-sided die, right? And it's like 20, and if you turn it clockwise, it goes to 19, right? Yeah. But instead, he turns it counterclockwise 4 times. And I'm just like, what the fuck is the point of a spin down dice if you're gonna turn it counterclockwise every time?
Wait, hold on. I'm trying to figure out what I do. 19. Take what do I do? Counter? No. Yeah, I do that too.
You get what?
20. I do it too.
What's wrong with you?
This is the funniest
Like,
thing.
I have one. I have a giant one right here.
Yeah.
20. I definitely don't just go to 19.
I literally we were playing at a 1K.
Wait, we need to make
last year.
counterclockwise spin down dice for you guys.
So
but then we'll do it the other way probably.
we were playing at a 1K at Bearded last year. That was the one where Sonny got introduced to the community, right? And I topped forward, and Rebel was asking me about like how I like just do all of my at table games, and I was telling her I stopped writing life totals down on paper because it takes too much brain power, right? So I switched to using dice. So I was playing in this 2K in January that I ended up winning, and the judge made me not play with dice.
Ugh.
They're like, you like at this REL, you have to play with
to play
paper.
with a pad.
And I'm like, these dice literally came. You can see this is a Phyrexian die or whatever, right? Like these dice literally came.
Mike, you're not going to win this. You just can't play with dice.
Did it mess up your game? I forgot to bring a die to LobsterCon, and in pre-modern day, I was using random die. It messed my game up a lot.
I am so used to playing the green die is me and the other die is them. I'm so used to it. Like
right.
it
So
was
did you play
so jarring to me to pick
Did you
up
play worse when you were forced to use pencil and paper?
I don't know. I lost one game the entire tournament. So
it is important for REL to use pen and paper just because you'll have a record of life total changes.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I'm just not used to it.
And also, it's a sort of fascinating. I listened to a podcast recently that was actually produced by professionals that surely had show notes in which they explained that the history of the notebook is super interesting. So taking notes on paper engages your hippocampus, whereas taking notes on a computer with a keyboard does not. And so it makes me wonder if when you write your life total down, it might actually stick in your head a little bit better than when you're turning a dice and like know that you can just reference it. So, but that's neither here nor there. I don't think that these are necessarily unlocks because they can be done in whichever way suits people. Like I think it's a pretty level 1 thing to just be like, play Magic in a way such that the information on the table like is easily accessible for you. If you need a rectangle printed on your playmat, great. But what's especially strange about you talking about the rectangle playmat was just that that's such a you thing. And like Brooke is trying to figure out how to make playmats for everyone. And most people don't like rectangles.
That structure thing reminds me of when people used to be like, oh, how do you remember those articles? How can you do better at Magic tournaments? Like, get a good night's sleep,
drink water,
breakfast. Like, just shut the fuck up, right?
So,
we all know that.
So here's a thing Brad taught me. He's like, I know what deck you're playing, right? Based on I had a life pad, and he could see based on how much life my opponents had taken in chunks. He extrapolated what deck I was playing. He's like, never do that again, right? He told me after the match.
He sees all the angles,
right? So, and I was just like, oh, that's fucking crazy, right? He's just like, it's actually obvious in hindsight, right? It's like you can tell when someone's playing a beatdown deck because there's very little action on their side of the life.
Yeah. Show up to the table with a blank pad, and you know what? While we're at it,
an easy fix.
Make sure that you
that's not obvious.
You use something behind your pad so that the indents don't go onto the next sheet, and you're still leaking.
I actually handed out. I had a stat or a test in my AP Stats class at school last week, and I did my answer key on a stack of tests. And so there were indentations on the test, and whoever was got the top test you could like sort of see, the answers or whatever.
Did they have like the pencil?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like you couldn't actually see anything, but there were plenty of indentations because it was a ballpoint pen on 2 pieces of loose leaf paper.
There was an angle. Angle.
Yeah.
What matters is that
I actually need to go back and see if he took it. I would be fine with that if he took it. More power to him for realizing this and utilizing it. I'm fine with it.
That's real life skills right there. Right? If your opponent has a leak, if your opponent has a tell.
Right.
Like you're trading on it. But yeah, I mean, I think that, boomers just love this stuff, right? I want to know how people are, taking complex bits of information and distilling them into like making a perfect play using an analysis of all the possible like outcomes. And Mike is just like, well, you see my life pad. My graveyard is always in the bottom right corner of my playmat. I'm just like,
I made sure I ate a good breakfast and I drank a lot of water.
I was like, if I got Brad Nelson in a room, I would not ask him. I like that story though. I think that's I think that's pretty sick. I mean, and those things are cool too. Like, it's obviously great to exploit your opponent's leaks. And I think that, like, you know, granted in this era of Magic, it just sort of is understated, taking advantage of visual tells, live tells, right? Like, and stuff like that. But I think that fundamentally, like, you know, it is weird when you're thinking about improving and just like trying to like I don't know, it's like, you know, Mike, I mean, we do this all the time because we talk to each other about plays. And I think one interesting thing that you do is that I think that you're so like when I talk to you about plays, it feels like you justify them after the fact, right? You make the intuitive play and then there's a reasoning behind it that you're like, that you uncover, but only when you're asked.
So I probably picked this up from Kenji. So Kenji made top 4 of Pro Tour Atlanta, which is like the second Pro Tour that I was in the booth in. And the thing that I noticed was he was gonna, if he got a draw, the other team would have made top 4. So Kenji had to get a win, right? And Kenji played super fast and like infected his opponent with playing super fast,
right? And made them play super fast.
Such a thing, and yeah. I think like that's a thing that I think that I do. Like you're just like, oh, I never tank. I just play super. Like I certainly make mistakes, right? And like I miss things and everything. But if I make my opponent play super fast because I'm playing super fast, they'll make even more mistakes than I will because they're not used to playing at that tempo.
Yeah.
And I consciously picked it up from Kenji in like 2005, and I think I just incorporated that into my play style afterwards.
Well, I mean, my favorite story was just Mano Cabal therapying for sleight of hand against Dreadnought. Like, I just thought
so obvious.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like it's so funny. It's like man, it's just like it's so obvious. It's like I had to like think about it. You know, I had to do the range analysis, right? Like I was just like, what? Like how? You know, whatever. But that's the thing is like you didn't even think about it. That's the part that gets me is that some of it's obvious and some of it's not. But like I said, it's hard to figure out with the present company because I feel like I wonder if there's any pros. I mean, is it just Nassif who plays in that style of just like a tank heavy gameplay? Like,
no, there's
all the super good play, not all, but the vast majority of the super good players play lightning fast. Yeah. Like Kai and John in particular, both very fast players.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Maybe I should just speed up then and not worry about the decision making after the fact. I mean, I think the newer generation of players like really like dissecting, and especially because streaming is so popular. Like now that people are streaming, like they have to rationalize their plays in real time.
Zoomers play around everything. When I talk to Itai about plays, it's crazy how many things he's thinking about, right? Yeah. And I'm like, the play was so obvious. And he's like, but what if they have this, and this? I'm like, this is still the right play, you know? And they're like, literally, they're like 4-dimensional chessing every single cantrip.
Yeah.
You know? Huh. Days Impulse game.
Days Impulse game. I mean, that is pretty next level. Well,
can we before we end this, I know it sounds like you have somewhere to be. Can we talk about something very important?
Yes.
How do you guys feel about Chapel Roan?
Oh, I put
look at Lanny's nails. He had them done so that he could be the MC at a Chapel Roan themed drag show.
Okay, fine.
Let me show you a photo of me from that because you weren't there.
That's Lanny on the right.
Holy okay, fine. And yeah, you've summarized how you feel about her in one.
Chapel Roan is unassailable. I'm good with people who just like don't really buy into Taylor Swift. Chapel Roan is unassailable.
I agree.
Yeah,
I could not be more obsessed.
Yeah, just it's
my friend Katie was in town. She's like, "Oh, do you have any plans this week?" And I'm like, "I'm going to a Chapel Roan themed drag show
it's an aerial. It was a circus show, it was a variety show
in Ridgewick on Thursday." She's like, "I'm offended I wasn't already invited."
Yeah. She's amazing. Like it's like, and it's crazy because like I'm struggling with the thing right now because I also like most pop music. Like I was a pop music hater in my like into music days, and I'm trying to figure out if that was prejudice or if pop music was just worse at the time that like I was hating pop music. Cause like contemporary pop music is also just feels like good music.
It feels like good music, and it feels like smarter. Like
Yeah.
outside of Taylor, I get Taylor, whatever. I like her, whatever. But it feels like, especially Chapel Roan, but even like Olivia and Sabrina and these other people are like, there's like a level. I don't even know if intelligence is the right word, but the music feels smarter and sharper, and I can just like sense how smart Chapel Roan is in listening to her music. I assume she has probably like a 148 IQ.
Well, there's
right?
there's a thing with that though, because I also think Chapel Roan is an especially interesting case because her first like demos, EPs, if you like listen to her like singles that like were kind of symptomatic of how either her like agents and managers and labels were trying to position her when she was still like very young and very new were like these songs that were copies of other songs, right? So like I love, whatever, like Lord, Florence and the Machine, like very slightly
Florence and the Machine,
like a slightly older generation of pop, like Lana Del Rey and Lord, right? Like they
Love
tried
Lana Del
to
Rey.
put Chapel Roan into that kind of like thing, and it did feel it. I mean, who knows?
But that box clearly couldn't contain her.
Exactly.
But
And
how do you find new music? So like, I mean, I get music from my daughter, right? So she's like just super into music, and like so like Claro or something. But like of the things that I added independently, of things that I just didn't already have in my whatever these are the artists I listen to collection, I added one Fall Out Boy song to one running playlist, and the song's probably 10 years old, right? So, like, I don't know. How do you find music?
Actually, like in my classes in school, if I like show them something for 10 minutes or whatever, right, and then they have a lot of independent time to practice and do things, I often play music during those times. And I have my own school playlist full of all my boomer favorites or whatever, but I'm like literally asking them all the time, "Hey guys, give me some suggestions, and I will vet them and see if they're good." Not vet them for content, because I really could give a shit less what words or things are talked about in your music, if I like them or not. And if I like this song, boom, it's going on our class playlist. And so that's one way that I learn things. It's one of the small things you can actually gain from being a teacher, is learning about how to do music quick.
do your kids like fucking love you?
Probably, yeah. I think so.
I feel like if you were my teacher in high school, I'd be obsessed with you. I'm kind of obsessed with you in that kind of way, actually. But like, I feel like if you were,
you're almost young enough to be a student in high school, right? So,
okay, relax. Okay.
Almost.
Right.
But yeah, I was just like, I mean,
I treat my classes like literally like this conversation. I could have this entire conversation in class.
You're teaching stats right now, you said? AP stats?
Stats, geometry, and AP stats. Yeah, so nice. A bunch of sophomores and then some seniors in AP stats.
And it was interesting because I think you were talking about, in your conversation with Lan, is that you weren't, I guess, a super math guy. Are you an intuitive math guy too? Like, or does it matter? Because anybody can teach this stuff?
The content is so easy, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I had plenty of math teachers that, it's crazy because like our high school teachers, some of them influence you super well. Like all of my politics probably stem from like, a high school history teacher, which is like crazy when I think about like American politics, because I'm just kind of like, wait, I guess the rest of America didn't have Mr. Ilbrock. So like if they did, they would know this is all bullshit.
Well, and what if you had somebody different? Would you know? I mean, I'm sure you would have been able to figure out that most of it was bullshit, but like,
I have no idea.
Right. That probably helped you, at least saved you a bunch of time, having to like learn a bunch of shit for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, one of my other history teachers played John Lennon's Imagine in class on a segment on communism, and she was very pro-communism.
Yeah.
So we were like, like imagine there's no countries.
You're probably 16 years old, right?
You're I was 15.
We don't
16.
need possessions. We'll just live our lives, man.
Hell's to the man. Let's proxy our fucking lotuses.
Yeah.
I was ready to proxy lotuses.
Do you imagine like how powerful Magic the Gathering is? Right, it's literally just pieces of paper. You can get counterfeit versions from Temu, and yet you have people like Dave Kaplan and David Tao and 407 other people traveling to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to battle it out in a format that hasn't been relevant for 20 something years.
Yeah, and the 200 that went to Boston. Yeah.
Yeah, and they love it.
Well, like, and literally Boston, you win like a disenchant or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Like this vintage champs, you win some painting that's presumably worth like 5 figures, right? Or do you not?
About that.
Oh, what? Yes, Mike. Yes.
This is the first year that there is no painting.
So what do you win?
You get a foil alternate art tinker, and the flavor text is.
Please, no, really? Like, is it one of one? Like, how many tinkers exist?
There's 8 foils, and there's 32 non-foils.
So top 8 all gets a foil. So what's the difference between first and 8th?
Well, cash.
You get
but
you. I mean, you get the trophy.
Yeah, you get a trophy.
Fine.
Yeah. No, it's a huge deal. Like the
Matt Lindy would break the trophy before.
This is the first year. This is the first year of no tinker or no painting, and people lost their minds, rightfully so, because the painting was a huge part that made it special.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even like new art, but some of those paintings were like that time walk with that dude on that fucking circle.
Yeah.
You know, like that is pretty.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. I mean, the promos are worth loads of money, and like it is.
What's this tinker worth?
A few thousand, probably.
Okay.
It's gonna be thousands, but like obviously these sickos are just leaving them up, right?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
They did a good job picking cards that are from the format. So last year it was like Mental Misstep, and like the year before it was Gush. So like there was a Ponder. I think that might have been for Legacy, but like that's like pretty cool. Like it's not one of 8 though, because Euro and Japan Eternal Weekends I think also get them. So it's one of 24, but. Okay. Yeah, it is awesome. I think
that's a very small amount of those in the world. So they're worth a lot, but yeah, you're right. Like,
yeah, they're worth loads.
That painting on your wall,
but they're also a trophy. Like, it's crazy to me. Like, people try to buy people's Oscars. I'm just like, what am I gonna do with someone else's Oscar?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? I can't believe it.
Also, like, I don't know, like an actual Oscar, I probably wouldn't, mind having one of those.
I don't know.
Fun. Like, what's this Oscar for?
I was at this
best script in 2007.
Well, no, that's the question. Okay, so don't get me wrong. Like, if it's if it's like one of Meryl Streep's, right? Then that's like memorabilia, right?
Yeah.
But like, if it is like best sound editing 92 on like on like whatever, you're just like.
So I was at this rich guy's house like last month, and he had a lot of war spoils, right? So he is like, he served, but he's also super rich. So he's got like, I don't know, Nazi pistols and stuff from the Civil War, and like, literally war spoils. And then he was also I think a major or something in the U.S. Armed Services, but like he has like a bunch of like Purple Hearts and stuff, and you're not allowed to buy those, but he didn't win them all himself.
Yeah. So he collects
like
Purple Hearts. Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, what's the other one that's a big deal? Purple Heart is the one that you're wounded, right?
Medal of Honor.
The one that you pull people out of danger. He has one that he earned, but then he has other ones that he just bought. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. You're right. For the most part, yeah, a trophy is special because you earned it. But
I mean, when it's a card, it is, obviously it's super limited. And if you want to buy,
and if you want to sell it too, I'm not going to fault somebody for selling their $3,000 tinker that they, like.
But obviously, like, they rolled up with $100,000 deck. It's just like they're just like, yeah, I'm adding the tinker to this.
Yeah.
Still, so.
Well, tinker goes in that deck, right?
Yep.
Almost no matter what deck it is.
Almost no matter what deck it is, not quite. But yeah, it's because the big problem is like you have to add the tinker, and then you also have to have the Bolas's Citadel, so it's just like taking up a lot of slots. So not every deck plays tinker, and also you can't companion Luris if you have a Bolas's Citadel in your deck. So
are all of these words?
All things to consider.
I knew most of those words.
Let's do this again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dinner time. I have to go to the store to get groceries before making dinner. But
I also can feel my wife's energy.
Yeah.
We have to go out and run an errand and probably grab some dinner too. And I can feel it. It's palpable. It's palpable.
She always knew when to throw away a bum
hand. Yeah.
All
right, but we should do this again. This was very easy and it was fun. Not having to drive the conversation.
Yeah. I was actually, well, you drove it a little and it was great. I'm looking forward to hearing what you say in the segment before you put our audio file on your feed. That'll be like a little bonus content for us.
Okay. Yeah.
Be
So
like,
send me this,
I
send
hate
me this
Spike
MP3.
Colony. In particular, I hate listening to Mike.
He's-
Now I'm subjecting you to it.
Yeah. Welcome to my world.
Dun, all things considered.
I'm also curious to see how many people. There's has to be some, right? There's got to be some people that don't even know what Spike Colony is that listen to my pod, who like OGs from like Norway that like literally have only played paper old school in these old bars, you know, in the olden days, and they'd have no idea what pre-modern is.
That might be like introducing like I don't have an analogy for that. I don't think that they'll necessarily enjoy it. I hope they do.
Yeah,
they enjoy it and enjoy us. I will say it was cool. Definitely people at LobsterCon who are just like, I'm mainly an old school guy, but you know, they just like listening to hear what's up with pre-modern, or they just think it's fun. And I really appreciate that. Like when I didn't even recognize DFB when I was like walking in the building, and he was just like, oh, hey, you know, welcome to Discount CrabCon, as like a reference to something we said on Spike Colony. I was just like, oh, cool, that's funny. I was like, what's your name again? And I was like, and he was like,
Dave.
Yeah, he was like, it's David Firth.
Dave.
It was David Firth Bard. And I was like,
I'm the tournament organizer.
Is that what he said? He just goes, oh, it's Dave Firth Bard. That's fucking amazing.
What he said. And look, he doesn't have his photo on his icon. It's just an Ankh of Mishra. I only see that once a year when he announces LobsterCon.
Oh, I'm not faulting you. I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah. No, he said, I was like, what's your, oh yeah, thanks.
I know you.
What's your name? He's like, David Firth Bard. And I was just like, yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, so
Yeah.
taking it home, Andy texted me back. The card I didn't know was a different Art Urzus range.
Oh my God.
So-
and thanks for listening to Spike Colony. Love Mike, right? Is that what you were gonna say?
Love Spike Colony.
Whatever. Goodbye. Like that has to be the end. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Love.
Yeah.
More love.